Thank you very much. Okay, thanks, Mary. Good morning, everybody. According to our clocks up here, it's 9 o'clock sharp. Those of you who are out there eating breakfast, we're getting ready to get started. We have a quorum of at least 40 members present, so we will proceed. I want to welcome you to the mid-year meeting, and I thank all of you for braving the cold and the parking challenges and the traffic to come down to downtown Atlanta, and welcome you to the Marriott Marquis, the Atlanta Marriott Marquis. This hotel has been very, very gracious to us, and I'm glad that we were able to work with them to try and convene a mid-year meeting in Atlanta. I'd like to call to the podium my minister, friend, and jazz artist, Reverend Dwight Andrews, to provide us our invocation.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Atlanta. We're delighted to see you, and I'm honored to offer this invocation as you begin your work. Let us pray. Most merciful Creator God, sustaining God, we know you by many names and many faith traditions. We invoke your presence here and now as the State Bar of Georgia convenes to do its work at its 2015 mid-year meeting. We seek your divine and transcendent power as we grapple with the human condition and struggle to transcend our own interests and experiences for the greater good. God, we seek to know your divine love and wisdom as we affirm the connection of justice and mercy, judgment and compassion. Master, we pray that the State Bar of Georgia be the instrument of your will and your way. May the bar, like all of our human imperfect institutions, exemplify and model the best in us and be an agent of transformative change. Creator God, we know that progress is never permanent and that human truth is not absolute. But help us as we seek to speak your truth to power with clarity, compassion, humility, and even humor. We ask all of these things as we begin this work in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Andrews. And I was a little bit selfish. She's also Don Jones's pastor, too. It's not just my pastor. All right. I want to recognize the guests, judges, past presidents, judges, and special guests that are here with us today. We have had, over the course of the last couple of days, representatives from the Supreme Court, and some of them are here this morning. Chief Justice Hugh Thompson has been here every day. He's in the back row. Thank you, Justice Thompson, for coming. Presiding Justice Harris Hines. Justice Carol Hunstein is here in the back. Justice David Namias is also here. And Justice Keith Blackwell has been here with us, I think, Thursday night. From the Court of Appeals, we have Judge Chris McFadden, Judge Elizabeth Branch, Judge Carla Wong McMillan, who's also been on some committees for us, and then presiding Judge Ann Barnes. Past presidents, we have a historic, and I understand that Justice Melton came this morning. Good morning, Justice Melton. I hadn't had a chance to see you yet. Thank you for coming. Past presidents, we have a historic number of past presidents coming and attending this meeting, and we're glad that you make the time and effort to sacrifice to come and join us. We have Bill Barwick, Jeff Bramlett, Bob Brinson, Bill Cannon, Brian Cavan, Robin Fraser Clark, Jay Cook, Hal Daniel, Jim Durham, Ben Easterlin, Gerald Edenfield, Jimmy Franklin, David Gambrell, Lit Glover, Bob Ingram, Paul Kilpatrick, Linda Klein, Charlie Lester, George Mundy, Evans Plowden, Buck Ruffin, John Salmon, Ken Shigley, Doug Stewart, Erwin Stotz, and Lester Tate, who's also a member of the Board of Governors, who still comes by. So thank you, past presidents, for your support and your attendance. We appreciate it greatly. Okay, while Pat is coming forward to do the roll call, I'm going to let him speak first, and while that's taking place, I've got a couple of other announcements to make.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. We're going to pass out the roll as we always do. I'll ask everybody to look in your meeting books at pages 9 through 15. Make sure that if you requested an excused absence for a prior meeting, that we got you marked down correctly. If not, just see me after the meeting. And those in the back, when these rolls get to you and it appears there's nobody else to pass it to, just hang on to it, and at the end of the meeting, either give it back to me or to Sharon Bryant. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have some changes to make to the agenda. That was the preliminary agenda distributed in advance of the meeting. And if you will pull out your agenda and follow along with me. In the nomination section for the ABA delegates, need to make some corrections. And that's under 6B. The actual reflection in the book is incorrectly worded, and so you need to change the words under post 2 and post 4 where it says formerly held by and it's currently held by. These terms don't expire to August, and I was under the impression at the time we did the book that they would expire at the time we nominated them. So please change formerly to currently on post 2 and post 4. And then on the third entry by post 6, it will be held by the past president, but it's as of August. Again, I told you there was a difference in the timing for the effective date of these appointments. Anybody confused by any of these changes? Formerly to currently, and then July to August. Are there any other changes anyone else proposes to make to the agenda? Then I would entertain a motion to adopt and approve the agenda as amended. In a second. All in favor, please say aye. All right, we will go ahead and move forth with the amended agenda. The next item is the future meeting schedule. Bob has been very busy as our president-elect scheduling his meetings for next year, so please keep up with your calendars at the office. His new meetings are on pages 16 through 17, and I want to make certain that you all keep updating your information as soon as we get it. We have one item on the consent agenda, which is the next item of business, and that is just approval of the minutes from the last Board of Governors meeting that was held in Jekyll Island in November. Has everybody had a chance to review those? I would entertain a motion to approve the item on the consent agenda. Second. All in favor, say aye. Okay, that item is approved. We are beginning the action item section of our agenda, and I want to call your attention to the fact that this is a very lengthy agenda. So we're going to try to get through all of these legislative initiatives. We're going to get through all of these proposals, but we're also going to take the time to make certain that you're comfortable with them, okay? So if you all will be patient with me, we'll get through it, but it will take a little while. So those of you who are used to 1, 2, 3 minutes, it's going to take a minute to get through this, all right? The first one is probably brief, and that is we have members of the bar who are not necessarily members of our Board of Governors who are able to participate in the decision on this particular action. And that's because the first action involves an amendment to our bylaws. So if Bill Naismith is going to come forward to present the amendment to the bylaws, which was recommended by the Executive Committee, and Bill can explain what we're doing, and we'll try to carry the vote after he's finished his explanations and any questions.
Good, thank you. Good morning. If you'll look in your board book on page 23, what this is an amendment to Article 5 officers. Everything is underlined that are the changes. There is one thing I would point out on page 23, line 11, the word section should have a line drawn through it. What we did is took section out and put division because the young lawyers section is young lawyers division. Other than that, every change that you see is underlined, and I'll be glad to entertain any questions.
All right, seeing none, the purpose of these provisions was just to try to codify what needs to happen with regard to the annual meeting and the roles of the respective officers at the annual meeting. So I don't think there's anything controversial associated with it.
Correct.
But if there are any questions, there aren't any, I'd like a motion to approve the recommended changes to the bylaws. Any second? All right, it's been moved and properly second that we amend the bylaws as reflected on pages 23, I think it's the 25. Everybody here who's a member of the bar, the State Bar of Georgia, not just the Board of Governors, can vote on this. So all members in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hands. Okay, all of those opposed, same sign. Raise your hands. Let the record reflect that it was unanimously approved. All right, our next action items are only for the members of the Board of Governors to vote on. And in item number 4, there is a list of 19 changes to the disciplinary rules. Bill Naismith and I think John Hobberich, the chair of the Disciplinary Rules and Procedures Committee, will be before you to present the proposed changes and to explain the same. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Basically, what you have before you on these action items on number 4 in your agenda, the Disciplinary Rules and Procedures Committee has proposed these 19 changes. The majority of them are housekeeping. There are a few that are substantive, and I have the chairman of the Disciplinary Rules and Procedure Committee here who can certainly answer any questions that you might have about these. So, turn it over to you.
And I'll just briefly, Bill, run through these.
Sure.
The first 5 are all housekeeping amendments, which basically change references to the old standards to the rules, the quote-unquote new rules. These are just things that have never been cleaned up over the years, and that accounts for the first 5. The 6th rule, it's a change to Rule 4213, and this has to do with some ambiguity about whether the bar is required or should purchase a transcript of a hearing before a special master. This provides that the bar, in fact, pays for the takedown and transcription of a hearing before a special master, and then the respondent can purchase a copy of that just as in a normal civil deposition. If the respondent is indigent, then the bar can, under certain circumstances, buy a copy for them as well. This cleans up a problem we've had where respondents didn't want to pay for a copy of the transcript and would come down and want to look at ours and copy it and this, that, and the other. So that's the change there. The next 2 are similarly, and the next one is a housekeeping amendment changing the reference from standards to rules. And then the last one on the first page of the memo is actually a substantive change. It is an adoption of an ABA rule that prohibits a lawyer from contacting a juror where prohibited by law, by the judge, or and with respect to intimidating or otherwise influencing a juror after the trial is over. It arose out of a situation in Savannah that made the newspapers there, and it's an ABA rule that we're urging be adopted that we've never adopted before. The next rule is 5.4, a change there. This comes from the ITLS, the International Trade and Legal Services Committee. Thank you. I was on it, and I should have remembered what it stood for. And this provides for, in international context, where you have multinational firms that have equity partners or participants in the earnings of the firm or the enterprise that are not technically lawyers here. And this just provides a mechanism for dealing with that we feel is consistent with good practice. The next couple, 8.4D, that's just a housekeeping rule, as is the change to Rule 4.104, changing a reference to the Committee on Lawyer Impairment to the new name of that committee, which is Lawyer Assistance Program. The next rule change has to do with publication of proposed formal advisory opinions. Before, it has required strict publication in the Georgia Bar Journal, which is not published, it's every month, obviously, and it requires you to back up the publication deadline. So it has caused an unnecessary delay in promulgating and putting forth for comment formal advisory opinions. And we hope this is a streamlined procedure because they will be published on the bar's website and will be available without the delay in the publication schedule. Rule 4.106F2 just clears up an ambiguity in the rule where you have a case that involves a criminal conviction of a lawyer, and the rules seem to require that even though neither side contested the special master's findings, he still had to go through the review panel to make that proposal to the court. And this says that where no one requests review by the review panel of a decision of a special master in a conviction case, it can go directly to the court. The next two are basically, well, the next one is just a housekeeping, cleaning up a issue about where you file a petition for voluntary discipline. This makes clear that it's with the clerk of the disciplinary board. The final rule is a change in our rule about lawyer referral services. It's not a substantive change about what lawyer referrals whether you can use a lawyer referral service that does certain things. It is rather to take the state bar out of the business of certifying lawyer referral services. In the past, we've had a rule that basically, if you paid the fee and sent in a list of your lawyers that were in the referral service, you were, quote, certified by the bar. That has resulted in some services that we found problematic, and touting the fact that they're approved or certified by the bar, which was not really the case. That they had complied with the rule is all you could really say about it. And with the proliferation of internet search engines and bodies that have presence outside of the state of Georgia that we have no ability to control or regulate, we really thought we'd need to get out of the business of certifying lawyer referral services. I think that's it. These are all fairly straightforward, and we would entertain a motion at this time.
All right, this is from the committee, so it doesn't require a second, but is there any discussion on any of the proposed changes that have been presented to you to these rules? If they are approved by our board, they will have to go to the Supreme Court before they become final. All right, seeing no folks coming forward for discussion, all in favor of the motion from the committee to make these changes to our rules, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They are approved. All right, our next next action item involves a recommendation from the Business Court Committee regarding changes to, or really actually amendment to the Fulton County Business Court rule, operations actually, because it's going to expand it. And we have Ken Hodges, and you are not Joel Luke. I don't know much, but Ken, you're going to let me know who's there with you.
Thank you, Madam President. I've brought Jody Rhodes with us. Jody is the program director and the staff attorney for the Fulton County Business Court and can certainly answer any questions, or if anybody has any comments to make to her, she can help you. The proposed rule change will allow more cases to be sent to the business court in compliance with the Georgia International Arbitration Code. The business court division, the judges, Judge Goger, Long, Bonner, and Westmoreland have recommended this change. It'll establish specialized courts to hear disputes subject to international arbitration consistent with what's done in some of the larger cities, Miami and New York. We think Atlanta will be a great forum for that with our airport and with our legal community, and it could result in more business for several of you out in the audience. It'll require very little judicial resources that are already employed to run the business court, and it doesn't expand or contract any instances where arbitration will be compelled. It just gives sophisticated businesses the option to go into a business court rather than go into the regular docket of Fulton County. So, with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, or Jody will be happy to answer any questions about the proposed change.
Any questions? This also came from a committee, our Business Court Committee, and so it doesn't require a second. All right, seeing if there are any items of discussion. Anybody have any discussion issues? All right, without any, we'll move forward to a vote on approval of the changes recommended by the Business Court Committee regarding the Fulton County Business Court. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Ken and Jody. Thank you for coming. The next action item is dealing with a list of proposed regulations from the advisory committee. And Don Jones, our chair, who served with distinction, and Thomas Worthy, who's been very, very supportive of this initiative. And this committee will come forward and walk us through all of these proposed items. We're going to take each of these items one at a time. So if there's any discussion you have regarding a particular matter, just try to let me know as we go through it, okay?
Good morning. On pages 192 to 195 of your board book, you'll find the minutes from the Advisory Committee on Legislation's second and last meeting for this bar year that was held on December 4th. I just want to note briefly that that meeting was historical for a couple of reasons. We had a total of 14 proposals that we took under consideration, and the meeting was over 4 hours long. So for those reasons and no other reason, I'd ask that the members of the Advisory Committee on Legislation please stand. We're present in the room. And thank them for their hard work this year, a record year. So as a reminder, and Madam President, are we going to talk a little bit about background about the Keller?
Okay. I'm going to cover the background on Keller once, and it will apply to all of these. And we'll do it right before we go into the discussion on each of the bills. Those of you who are new to the Board of Governors, we just want to let you know that there are 2 votes required for each legislative proposal submitted to the Board of Governors. The first vote will be on whether or not it satisfies the Keller test that was adopted or established by the United States Supreme Court. And that test means that it, and Paula, you'll help me if I get the words wrong, that it is germane to the practice of law, to the scope and purpose of the bar. And once it passes that scrutiny test, and you all will vote on that, we go into an actual vote on approval or denial of the actual proposed legislative agenda item. Anybody have any questions about that? 2-vote process will take place with each of the items, but they're going to go through the items. I really want them to try to go through the items and us address any questions one at a time.
Thank you, Madam
All right, thank you.
The first action, and these are listed in your board book, the first proposal we're going to take up is a judicial salary increase. It increases salary for Superior Court judges by $15,000 this year, with 2 subsequent requests for $15,000 per year during the 2016 and 2017 sections, respectively. It also increases the salary for justices of the Supreme Court and the judges on the Court of Appeals by $25,000 this year, with 2 subsequent requests for increases to match any increases received by the Superior Court judges in 2016 and 2017 sessions. Are there any questions? Actually, let me back up and ask, well, if there are any questions, we have someone in support, hopefully, in support of each of these proposals, and in this case, it's Judge Mary Staley, who can come up and address any questions you have. And if there are questions, I just ask that Judge Staley, if she's present, to come up and answer any. Thank you. The first thing I'd like to do is address the Keller vote, germane to the scope and purpose of the
Well,
State Bar.
hold on just a second. I want to make certain, since we're doing legislative, are there any questions about the judicial increases?
Okay,
Just
you
the
wanna- yes,
presentation of the information?
Okay, before the motion? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If there are no questions, then we'll move into the Keller decision.
Got
I need
it.
a motion that this proposed support of a request for judicial increases meets the Keller test. Any second? All right, all in favor of, is there any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. All right, let's move forward. Thank you, Judge Staley, from coming from Cobb County. There won't be any questions, so you got lucky. All right, the next matter.
So then we vote on the proposal. So it passes Keller. So the second vote is whether or not the State Bar of Georgia should support this proposal. Is there a motion to do so?
The
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, our lobbyists will be directed to exert all of the efforts of the State Bar in support of judicial pay increases through this legislative cycle. And judges and justices, we wish you luck.
The next proposal to be considered is the district attorney pay parity. Is Gregory Edwards here?
It's actually
Oh. Todd Ashley and Chuck Spahos. Oh, and I just saw it. Thank you, gentlemen. Are there any questions for these gentlemen related to this proposal? And I'm sorry, the proposal, I'm jumping ahead, raises the compensation of an elected district attorney to a level comparable to that of a Superior Court judge.
Any questions about just the proposal? Come on forward.
Yeah, the only thing I would note is that coupling is the biggest impediment to judicial pay raise. And so every time we couple the judicial pay raise to any other, whether it's the district attorneys or whether it's public defenders or whether it's state court judges or whether it's anybody else, the net effect within the legislature is then anytime they go to vote on it, they're going to be voting on not just one pay raise, but they're going to be voting on multiple pay raises. So I just draw that just as a point, and I know Tom Worthy, who's intimately familiar with the legislature, knows full well as I do exactly how the bowels of the legislature work and how sometimes things get misdirected. So I only put that out as a piece of information. I support the pay increase. I do worry about coupling judicial pay raises of any kind to the pay raises of any other state employee, only because it makes the difficulty for each of them separately far greater than had they been proposed individually.
Well, I do want to make just one correction. Thank you, Randy, for that observation, and we'll be mindful of that as we go through the legislative process. This is a support for this issue. It is not a companion piece with the judicial salary increase. There will be different bills, different organizations leading those charges, and what we are being asked to do as a State Bar is to indicate our support of what they are doing. It is not a combined bill, so it's not. I understand the difficulty of having all of these bills go through, and I understand that point, but I'm letting you know we are indicating our support, and the committee did recommend that we go ahead and lend our support to that. Well, go ahead.
Thank you.
Right
Thank you. I'm Chuck Spahos. I'm the Executive Director of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council. I want to at least address that concept. One of the reasons that we've brought this forward is if you look back through the history of pay between the DAs and the Superior Court judges, there's been a lack of working together on the issue of judicial pay in the past. So our proposal actually is for us to, from this point forward, work with the judiciary and not independently working on raises. For instance, the last significant pay increase the district attorneys got that the Superior Court judges didn't get. So our proposal is actually to tie them forward so that we are working in uniform when we address the legislature about judicial pay, including the district attorney. So I agree with what you're saying in a general rule, but I also want to make you understand that we're here to work in conjunction with the judiciary on these issues. So.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion that this is germane to the scope and purpose of the State Bar of Georgia? And I'll repeat, it's the district attorney pay parity. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Madam, I'm sorry. I just realized she's behind me and probably should be doing this. Sorry.
No, as a committee chair, you got a lot of flexibility, so we can do it that way. It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor of this matter satisfying the Keller test, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed, say nay. Now, the second vote will be on whether or not the Board of Governors of the State Bar of Georgia will be indicating their support of parity for the district attorneys. Is there a motion to approve that? Second. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. All right, the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next item.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next item is the public defender pay parity. If Michael Cranford is here, please come up and address any questions that might be posed. It raises the compensation of each circuit public defender to a level comparable to that of an elected district attorney. Are there any questions related to this proposal?
The same comment, I presume, Randy, about this one.
So the train gets longer. Every time we add, and I appreciate the president's comments, however, the very word parity is coupling. And that's how it gets translated in the legislature. And with all due good respect to my good friend, the district attorney, having been in the governor's office when the last judicial pay raise came through, it was the subject of a line item veto. It was not the subject of the district attorneys helping or not helping, or the judges helping or not helping. And the only thing I share with all of my fellow members of the Board of Governors, as many of you know, I know a few of the folks down under the Gold Dome. I know a few of the folks that sit in the governor's office, and I can tell you that if we want to get a pay raise for judges, we need to go for a pay raise for judges. If we want to send a symbolic gesture that we're for pay raises for everybody, then we can do that. And there's no effective way, having been down there now since 2002, there is no effective way where we can avoid the train effect if we keep coupling every pay raise so that the moment you raise Superior Court judge salary, it translates to a DA salary increase, which translates into a public defender increase, which then translates at a county level to a host of other issues, which also include their supplements. I personally am singular focused on getting a pay raise for judges. They haven't had one in 16 years except for a couple of minor COLAs. We have a realistic shot, having met, as I know Tom has, with the caucuses in both the House and the Senate. I know where the governor stands on this issue. And the real question for us is, how serious are we about getting a pay raise for judges?
I don't know if you want to make any further comments.
Thank you for that. On behalf of the Indigent Defense Council, our position is a little bit different. It's parity in a sense, but the reality is this. When the Public Defender Standards Council was created 10 years or so ago, and the issue came up about pay for the district attorneys and for the circuit public defenders, the salaries were set by legislation, in my mind, arbitrarily at about 90%. And the conversation, as I understand it, and again, if I misspeak, if you were there, I was not at the legislature at the time, but the conversation, as I understand it, is that the district attorney's position was, well, we handle more cases, so we should have more money. And their salary was set, I think, at around $97,000, and the salaries for the circuit public defenders was $84,000. Is that about right? Okay. So our position, as far as the Indigent Defense Committee, is 40-hour work week is a 40-hour work week, and it shouldn't arbitrarily be set. And what we found out over the 10 years that the Public Defender's Office has been in place is that it has balanced out as far as the district attorney's workload and the public defender's workload are similar, but the fact of the matter is they all just work a 40-hour week. So our position is it should be parity because we've got a department head over here that is functioning the same as a department head over here. And so if you've got somebody with 10 years' experience as a lawyer, and then his salary as a government official, so to speak, should be no different from any other person with the same experience and with the same job description, basically. Thank you.
We have another question?
We have another item, yes. Come forward to the microphone. Is that one back there too? Come to the microphone, Dennis. We can hear you.
Madam President, distinguished guests, and other bar members, I'm Dennis O'Brien from Cobb County, and I have a few comments on this proposal. I don't see this proposal about money at all. I see this more about dignity. You know, a few minutes ago, we recognized the importance of our judges and our district attorneys in the judicial system, and we are requesting the legislature factor in our support and compensate them appropriately. And through this proposal that is on the floor now, we're asking the same for our public defenders. You know, these are folks who work at a very difficult task. They represent unpopular people with overwhelming problems. It's not popular work. You don't get elected president of the Kiwanis Club if you're the public defender. You don't get invited to the photo op when the governor comes to town. But through the work that the public defenders do, they carry out the promise of Gideon versus Wainwright, and we all know how important that is. You know, we're not asked to write any checks today. Nobody here is going to write a check. Nobody's going to be asked to take a very difficult case. You know, we're simply asking to afford the same dignity and support we give our judges and our district attorneys to the brothers and sisters at the bar who do the very difficult work of being a public defender. And we would like to tell the legislature that the bar believes that they, too, are valuable members of our judicial system, no less than our judges or district attorneys, and should be compensated commensurately. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other comments about the proposal from the committee? All right, there are two different, are you coming? Come on. I just, I'm gonna tell you up here, I'm gonna let y'all know, these lights are blinding.
They are, they really are.
So we can't see, so thank you for coming forward.
There's no question that the public defenders and the DAs are underpaid. And quite frankly, there's no question that the judges are underpaid. However, if you look at the realities, I pulled my little judge book of Superior Court judges, and I just looked to see experience and why perhaps judges might be paid more than some of the other court officials. And I think beyond any question, and unfortunately I'm a good example of it, we're getting older. Judges typically have served in the state longer than public defenders and longer than district attorneys. So we typically, judges have more experience and they're not paid for the experience. They have served a longer period of time, and typically, I actually went through to check, there are 18 sitting judges that used to be district attorneys. There are no district attorneys that used to be sitting judges. There are probably 30 or 40 sitting judges that used to be assistant district attorneys. There's only one public defender who is now on the bench, who used to be a public defender. And Matt Crawford, who was the head of the Public Defenders Association, is now on the Superior Court bench. I certainly think that public defenders ought to be paid more, and certainly it's an issue of dignity, and I think that's certainly true. And I think district attorneys ought to be paid more. That's certainly true. But I think just as a reality, Superior Court judges almost always have had, we don't have any statistical analysis, but I don't think it's disputable that Superior Court judges have a longer period of time of public service, have a broader area of knowledge, and in fact, what we are doing with this state vote, or by the vote of the bar here, we're increasing salaries across the board. I think that's good, but the parity is going to sink the Superior Court judgeship and the Supreme Court. This is killing. We're going to kill the judges' bill. I certainly think DAs ought to get paid more. I certainly think public defenders ought to get paid more. Judges have not had a raise since 2000. It's been Judge Piegler came on the bench in 2000. He's been on the bench for 14 years with me. He has never had a raise. We've had some COLA raises, but nothing really significant. I am not against the district attorneys. I was a chief assistant DA for 10 years, and I thought about being in the DA's office, but instead I went to the bench. I'm not against public defenders. They do a great job. But in terms of longevity, in terms of breadth of experience, in terms of depth of experience, the Superior Court judges have more experience, and I think making all public lawyers be paid the same is not necessarily paying for experience, longevity, and merit. And what we're doing here, we're not considering merit, experience, and longevity. We're just doing parity for everyone. And I don't think the jobs are parity. I don't think the experience is parity. And unfortunately, what we're doing by having parity for everyone, no one's going to get a raise.
You want to address that?
Thank you, Judge Smith, for your comment. Ms. Jadanya Butler.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms.
Jadanya Butler, member at large, Post 2. I have a question, a more global question, I guess, for the committee chairs. Assuming what Mr. Evans is sharing and what some of the other commenters have shared about the danger in parity and presenting all these things at once, I'm interested in knowing the committee's position as to why we are proposing parity and doing all these things at once, recognizing the danger and presenting it at one time.
I don't necessarily perceive it as a danger. I mean, these are all be separate bills. They'll all be handled separately when they get to the Hill, so to speak. But when you look at the circuit public defenders, that salary was set by legislation. And so if you look at in your book, is what we're proposing is to take that line item out that sets the salary at a legislative figure. It doesn't really set it at 90%. It set it at a specific legislative figure of, I think, $84,000 or something like this. So if we adjust that, then that makes it a lot easier, I guess, to understand that because they're two compatible persons, as it were, they should be on the same pay level. But I don't see it as either one of these is killing the other, because if they were all in one bill, all in one legislation, I could understand that. But they're each going to have to stand on their own feet.
Ken Hodges.
Thank you, Madam President. And let's keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, there are only 49 elected DAs, and there are only, and I don't know the number of circuit public defenders, but they're less than that. So we're only talking about a handful of people, and the fiscal impact is going to be negligible on the state. And we need to support putting the salaries behind good people, judges, DAs, and circuit public defenders. This isn't pitting one against the other. And so the fiscal impact isn't going to derail any one of them.
All right, if there are no new comments about the topic, we'll move forth with a Keller determination. Is there a motion that this matter is germane to the purpose and scope of the bar? Is there a second to that motion? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. All right, there's a couple of nays, but the ayes have it with regard to the Keller decision. Now, is there a motion to approve the proposed legislation submitted by the ACL with regard to pay equity for indigent defense?
Public defender.
Public defenders. Is there, okay, that's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. It appears to the chair that the ayes have it, so that matter passes. What's the next item?
Thank you. Item number 4, the long-arm statute revision. If Jimmy Hurt's here, if he can come forward to address any questions. This proposal expands Georgia's extraterritorial jurisdiction to the fullest extent allowable under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States and Georgia Constitutions.
Are there any questions? All right. right, seeing none, we would move forward. Thank you very much for coming with us. We'll move forward with the Keller decision. Stay up here until we finish. All right, move forward with a motion that this matter is germane to the scope and purposes of the State Bar of Georgia. Okay, so moved. Have a second? All in favor of this particular proposal satisfying the Keller test, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it with regard to the Keller decision on this matter. And moving forward now to a vote on the Board of Governors' support for the long-arm statute revisions. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation of ACL? Okay. Is there a second? All in favor say, excuse me, is there any discussion, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. All right, that matter passes. Let's go to the next item.
Fifth item is the ward and lien legislation. If Gail Camp is here, would you come forward and be prepared to address any questions? This proposal requires local water authorities to file liens against properties for water service at a centralized database maintained by the Superior Court Clerk's Cooperative Authority.
Does anyone have any questions with regard to this particular bill? This matter is one that's come before the board 2 years ago when we approved it and we sent it to the legislature. It kind of died in the 11th and a half hour, and so it's coming back. And it's been modified significantly to address some of the previous concerns. All right, if no one has any questions about the proposal, we'll go forth with the Keller determination. Carol, okay. Okay, we have it probably moved and seconded that the matter is germane to the purpose and scope of the State Bar of Georgia. All in favor of that say aye. All opposed say nay. All right, we've satisfied the Keller test. The next step is to formally approve the Board of Governors' support of this matter in the legislation, during the legislative cycle. Is there a motion that we move this matter, that we approve this matter? Second? All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we approve moving forward with the recommendation from the ACL Committee on the water liens recordation changes. Any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. All right, we will move forward with that one as being approved. Next item.
The sixth item, sixth proposal is the Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act, which adopts the Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act. I actually practiced this. Adopts the Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act, which gives fiduciaries the same access to digital assets that the decedent would have had. I practiced that. I'd like to call Nick Jurek, and I apologize if I killed your last name, Jurek. Nick, if you are here, would you come up to address any questions? Or anybody from the fiduciary law section?
Yeah, I don't think I see anybody here. Anybody have any questions about this matter? Yeah, that's what I can tell you what I recall from the meeting, and if I'm incorrect, somebody else who was there can help me. But it basically allows a personal representative, be it a guardian or executor or administrator, access to assets that are held strictly online now. For example, stocks are no longer paper copies. If you have stock at Merrill Lynch, it's in an account that's electronic. And the law has not kept pace with that. And so you have to empower the personal representative to have the ability to access online assets, which include stock, accounts, bonds, anything that's held in kind of like cyberspace without it being tangible. So they can't take a paper to someone and say, here I am, a power of attorney, guardian appointed by the court, executor.
Okay.
Just trying to say it as a tongue twister. All right, any other questions? Well, actually, you can at least, with a court order, now proceed under this statute to gain access through the custodian. You're just trying to get me to say that again. Through the custodian of those electronic assets. All right, all kidding aside, it was an important matter from the fiduciary law section, and they submitted it to the ACL for consideration. It was approved by the ACL, so it's before us today. The first test is to see whether or not you all think this is germane to the scope and purpose of the State Bar of Georgia. Is there a motion for that? Second? All right, is there any discussion on the Keller issue? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, that matter passes the Keller test. The next is a vote on the approval of moving forward with a recommendation from the ACL to have this matter be supported during our legislative session. All in favor, I need a motion for that, dealing with the assets, electronic assets. Thank you, Donna. Is there a second? All right, all in favor, is there any discussion on the underlying merits? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Thank you very much. The fiduciary law section will appreciate that. Next item.
Okay. Item number 7, proposal related to Business Corporation Code amendments. If William Baxley and Bruce Wanamaker are present, would you come up? Thank you. It contains multiple technical corrections to the Business Corporate Code, and I'm going to repeat this. Please understand that the provision of this proposal that changed the standard for directors' liability from negligent to grossly negligent was stripped away by the Advisory Committee on Legislation. The provision of this proposal that changed the standard for directors' liability from negligent to grossly negligent was stripped away by the Advisory Committee on Legislation. So the report in your book, I got it. Thomas has prepped me. Sections 830 and 842 specifically, on page 195 in your board book in the minutes, we specifically discussed the stripping away. So sections 830 and 842 are specifically affected, and they were removed during the discussion and prior to the final vote by the Advisory Committee on Legislation with regard to director liability. So I wanted to make sure that you understood that the proposal does not include this change from negligent to grossly negligent.
So on pages 145, 146, and 147, please delete that section, which deals with standards of conduct. Please delete the Part 3, proposed changes to Part 3, which is 14-2-830, which is located on page 145, 146, and 147 of your board book. All right. Are there any questions with regard to the other proposed changes? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming. We will move forward with the Keller determination. Is there a motion that this matter is germane to the purpose and scope of the State Bar of Georgia? Is there a second? Is there any discussion on that Keller determination? Seeing none, all in favor of this matter satisfying the standards of Keller, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, now to the underlying merits of the recommendation from the ACL committee with regard to changes or amendments to the business code. Is there a motion to approve the recommendations from ACL? Is there a second? It's been properly moved and second that we approve the recommendations approved by the ACL to move forward with during our legislative session. Is there any discussion with regard to the substantive issues of the amendments? Seeing none, we'll go forth with a vote. Is all in favor of going forward with approval of the recommendations regarding the amendments on the business code, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, that's been approved. Madam Chair, go to the next matter.
Thank you. The next proposal is the Uniform Unsworn Foreign Declarations Act. If Ben Greer is available, would you please come forward, help us respond to questions? This proposal permits in state court proceedings unsworn declarations under the penalty of perjury to be executed by witnesses physically located outside of the United States in lieu of affidavits, verifications, or other sworn court filings. Oh, that's,
Is there any question with regard to this particular proposal? Are there any
Yes, sir.
questions?
Thank you. So,
Okay, seeing none, we will go forward with a determination on whether or not it satisfies the Keller test and whether or not it is germane to the scope and purpose of the State Bar of Georgia. Is there a motion with that regard? Is there a second? It's been properly moved and second that this matter does meet the test established by Keller. Is there any discussion on that? All right, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed by saying nay. All right, well, we have 2 more ayes, we have nays. Come on, everybody, help me participate with voting.
Don't fade now.
There
We're
are a lot
almost
more
done,
chairs
guys.
and
Do
I'm
not
getting
fade on me now,
signs.
please.
But it does pass. Okay, hold on just a second. Is there a motion? Hold on, just wait. Excuse me. First of all, I need you to do 2 things. When I ask about discussion points, come to the microphone, and I'll try to make certain I address you. But you do have an opportunity, so start getting to the microphone, because we're going to move on whether or not we should approve the substantive matter before you, which is a recommendation from the ACL dealing with the Uniform Unsworn Foreign Declarations Act. Is there a motion that we put this through to our lobbyists? So moved. Is there a second? All right, so properly moved in second. Is there any discussion? Thank you, Philip.
What is the purpose of this? I've read it and I've read the comments, and I can't understand, when would this be used and why do we need it?
Let me respond to that. I'm Peter Dean. I'm a member of the International Trade and Legal Services Committee. The purpose of this is to facilitate the taking of submission of evidence from witnesses who are overseas. It might be U.S. or Georgia citizens, it might be foreign citizens who are overseas. The practice has been in the past that in Georgia, you had to have an affidavit. That has become much more difficult to obtain overseas as access to U.S. embassies and consulates has become physically much more restricted because of terrorism and security concerns. For about the last 36 years, there is a federal statute in place which permits the use of unsworn declarations, provided that they are subject to penalties of perjury. And the purpose of this statute is to conform this statute would conform Georgia law to federal law and to the laws of 21 other states which permit the use of unsworn declarations under penalty of perjury. This does not mean that it is a trivial or light matter to submit evidence, but it's to facilitate that process, which has become significantly more difficult, and it's to harmonize Georgia law with federal law and with the laws of 21 other states. To the best of the knowledge of the committee, there's no opposition to this in any state or any body of law.
May I speak? This is Edward Tolley. I'm not opposed to the idea. I just have a question. Under penalty of perjury, are these unsworn statements U.S. citizens? Because if they're not U.S. citizens, the penalty of perjury doesn't mean a whole lot to somebody that might live in another country.
I don't believe it's restricted to U.S. citizens, no.
Well, that was my concern.
I don't believe that that's been a problem under the federal statute or the laws of the other 21 states that have adopted it. I don't have the statistics on that, but I don't think that's been a problem.
Well, what would be the impetus for somebody to be truthful in an unsworn statement if they're not actually subject to the penalty of perjury? That's my concern. I think the idea of U.S. citizens making such a declaration who are living overseas is perfectly acceptable. But the other issue, can you address that for me, please?
I don't think that that would be any different than if you retained the current affidavit requirement if it's a non-U.S. citizen overseas. It's the same issue.
The only change in this is just whether or not you're going to have a notary. And what they're doing is dealing with the fact that the notarization process abroad for both U.S. and foreign citizens is more complicated. And so the uniform rules from the ABA have been asked to be amended to allow for or accommodate unsworn affidavits as long as they are subject to the same penalties as you would with a notary. There's no difference in that.
Is it different than interrogatories rogatory? I mean, is this the same? Basically the same process?
It will be the same thing in interrogatories as well as any other affidavit. You have to have a notary right now in Georgia, regardless of whether the person was an international citizen or a U.S. citizen. So what they're saying is, because that process is difficult, you can't, regardless of whether they're U.S. abroad or international citizen abroad, they're coming up with a different approach that doesn't require notaries, because you just can't go to every block to get a notary in some other place.
Just one other comment that I'd like to make is that, as I'm sure all of you are aware, there's been a push to increase the use of international arbitration in Georgia, particularly in Atlanta, and this would certainly help facilitate the growth of that part of the legal profession and the bringing of cases here, which I think would be beneficial to the bar.
Peter, just to make clear, am I correct, the federal statute that exists now would apply within the United States to declarations made under penalty of perjury? We're not proposing that this have any application other than beyond the territorial limits of the United States.
That's correct. This applies to proceedings in the state of Georgia before Georgia state courts.
So it's just to alleviate the problem that you have to have now you have to have a consular officer at a U.S. embassy notarize, if you will, any document that needs to be notarized.
That's correct. And at the moment, there's a discrepancy between whether you're in a federal court or a state court.
All right. Yes, Mr.
But doesn't the very act of appearing the notary verify that the person giving the statement is in fact the person signing the statement? I mean, my understanding in the states that have considered this and not adopted it is the big concern was not necessarily that it would be more truthful or less truthful, but to verify that in fact the person whose name appears is in fact the person who gave the declaration. And that's the reason you need a third party. It could be the consulate, it could be a notary, but basically the notary's job is to say, you are who you are. I know when I give an affidavit, I show my driver's license to the notary to confirm that I am in fact the person giving the affidavit. Isn't that the purpose of having the notary or having the consulate verify that the person giving the declaration is the same as the person that's signing it?
I think the practice of having a notary goes back way back into history. That's part of the purpose. I believe that it wouldn't be anything, if you had doubts about the identity of the person who is submitting the declaration, I don't think there'd be anything to stop the other parties challenging that. But the actual process of submitting an unsworn declaration, I personally haven't been involved in one myself, so I cannot tell you exactly how it is done. But I think that that question would not be closed if you wish to challenge it.
I just don't know how you would know. I get a declaration, I'm in court. How would I know that in fact the person who signed it is the person whose name appears on it if I don't have a third party who was there at the time of execution? That's my only concern, only because in my line of work I frequently deal with these kinds of issues, and one of the biggest single issues is I see a name who I have no idea who is. I have no way of tracking them down. I have no way of having a PI go find them. The only protection I really have is that there was either a notary or a consulate that said, I verified that's the person who showed they produced identification and they are in fact the person signing the declaration. What protection do we have there?
I don't think you have any more protection than you have now,
Yeah.
unless you're going to sue the notary
No.
abroad.
No, currently I have the protection of a notary saying that is the person who
Right,
showed up.
but you don't know if the notary did what you just said.
Right, but the idea that I would have a judicial officer commit fraud as opposed to a person who just simply sent in a declaration is that's a far different kind of risk.
I'd also
Patrice.
like to point out that
Yes,
the proposed Uniform Act excludes the use of unsworn declarations for certain things, including depositions, oaths of office, self-proved wills, and a number of other documents. So I think that might alleviate your concern to some extent. But I'd have to say that the fact that you have a foreign-based notary doesn't resolve the question that you had the right person attesting to it. It's just an additional piece of evidence.
All right, you have.
I'm not trying to make his life more difficult. I'm sensitive to the fact, particularly after what happened in Paris,
past 2 days, that sometimes getting to embassies is impossible. But if I want to prove the law of the state of South Carolina, I've got to have a South Carolina judge and the clerk of court sign off on it if I'm going to introduce it in evidence here. And all I'm saying should there not be some more of a requirement to address Randy Evans' concern that this in fact is the person? For example, could it be a Swiss magistrate or an Iranian magistrate? It doesn't necessarily have to be a U.S. consular, but I'm just wondering if this recommended law couldn't be improved to require some sort of proof that the affiant or the person making the statement is actually who they say he is. That's it. That's the only thing that I'm concerned about.
It seems to have been working in federal practice for the last 36 years, so if anybody who's got experience of federal practice wants to comment.
I have and I do, and I'm not sure I agree with you, but be that as it may.
But this is a proposed uniform rule from the ABA, and we're just trying to make certain that we get it before the legislature to see if they would like to address the problem, which is a problem, with getting affidavits notarized in other parts of the world. And as has been discussed, it does exist currently in the federal system, and we're just trying to make certain that Georgia law does not prohibit the same type of approaches in the federal. Any other discussions about the substance of the matter? I think we've already gone through Keller, if I'm correct. We need a motion to approve the recommendation from the ACO committee with regard to Uniform Unsworn Foreign Declarations Act. Is there a motion? It has been moved. Thank you very much. That's right. Thank you very much, Henry, because we were in the middle of discussion on it. So that's already taken place. We're going to go to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. This matter passes, and we will proceed with the next item on the agenda.
The final proposal brought before this board is the Attorneys for Rural Areas Assistance Act. Madam President is going to address any questions, and so I'm going to actually take the vote, if you don't mind. Okay. Oh, you're taking over this chair. I got it. I'm just making sure I'm not out of order. You'll take the vote.
Yeah, you're fine.
Creates a program to be administered by the Department of Community Affairs with the advice of the State Bar of Georgia, which will provide student loan payments to attorneys who serve 5 years of practice in rural, unserved areas of the state. Are there any questions?
Okay, may I have a vote?
Actually, I think he's coming to the...
I apologize,
Yeah.
Judge Smith.
This is mom and apple pie. How can you be opposed to something like this? I have 2 counties that don't have lawyers, one of which isn't recognized as not having a lawyer. However, in reviewing this, it really brings to mind what I think is a big problem for the Board of Governors. This is very bureaucratic, and it's it requires resolutions from the Webster County, which is one of my counties, which has less than 2,500 people. It requires resolutions from the county commissioners, the local economic development people. It's just more complex than it needs to be. And that brings to mind a specific issue that I think we have a problem with in the Board of Governors. We meet 4 times a year. We've got a lot of things to discuss, and we don't have time to discuss them. And we don't have any intercommunication between the Board of Governors. There's no bulletin board. There's no way I can write all of the Board of Governors and communicate some thought that I have as to some particular proposal. And there's no way they can communicate with me. With technology being the way it is today, I can only think that that's wrong and that's bad. We need this communication, and we need the ability to talk with one another and talk about the different ideas that are important ideas that we can only give 5 minutes to at these meetings. And we can improve programs just like this. This is a great idea. It's a great program. But I think by having someone who's there perhaps provide some input and say, well, here's a problem here, here's a problem here. For instance, if someone falls out without the 5-year program, they have to pay it all back at once plus a 10% penalty. You know, that may be valid, but these are things that we need to be talking about. And there's some people who feel like we're being purposely kept in the dark and we're not being allowed to communicate when other groups are communicating. In the Superior Court judges, we have bulletin boards that have 20, 30, we have multiple areas of which we can communicate. And we need something like that This is a perfect example. This meeting's a perfect example. We're not giving adequate time to talk about anything. We don't know about what we're going to have until we get the board book, and there's no communication between the people from Americus and the people from Gainesville, or I see the people from Atlanta when I get an opportunity, but we really need a better communication system so we'll know what we're talking about and we can make better decisions and improve the quality of our decisions.
Is there a question about this proposal? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I applaud the aim of the program to provide legal services to these underserved areas, but I'm wondering, wouldn't our efforts better be served to support Georgia Legal Services Program, who already have a mandate to serve the 154 counties that are outside the metro area? 4 of the counties, I believe, have a Georgia Legal Services office in a contiguous county. It would seem that we could put our efforts, rather than spending political capital at the bar, wouldn't it be better to put our efforts into further supporting Georgia Legal Services programs and those offices in those areas?
We have looked at that and actually have communicated with Phyllis about those offices serving as supervisory offices for the attorneys in the adjacent counties. The problem is that we need to have an attorney in the county, and the Georgia Legal Services Program can't staff all 159 counties with an attorney, and the attorney may not reside or be incentivized to reside in that particular county. This particular statute, and I agree with Rucker's comments, is bureaucratic. It goes to the Department of Community Affairs, but it's done so in order to mirror significantly the type of provision that's in place in the state with regard to providing doctors in underserved areas. And along with that comes a degree of bureaucracy, because you're providing tuition forgiveness. You need to make certain that there is some accountability with regard to that, expectations, monitoring rules, et cetera. And that does create a bureaucracy. But the difference between supporting Georgia Legal Services, which I'm a very strong supporter of, and instituting a program that can be used to address a crisis in underserved counties is totally different. Because Georgia Legal Services doesn't have the manpower or the staff, and you're not going to get through the Georgia legislature a funding mandate for Georgia Legal Services sufficient to even put 5 lawyers, let alone 6 lawyers or 7 lawyers in these counties.
What about just the law of supply and demand? I mean, this has been a problem for a long time in these counties, and a good lawyer, you need really 2 lawyers in any county. You got to have one to file a suit and one to defend it. And, you know, obviously if there was a need, it would seem that just the basic economic principles would have filled that void. And to the point about the staffing the county, used to ride the circuits. I mean, judges used to ride circuits, lawyers ride circuits. Couldn't Georgia Legal Services set up a schedule where they're going to have a lawyer in the county seat where they could, if people had a need and needed a lawyer, they could come see them, rather than actually spending capital and creating another bureaucracy that's going to require funding when we already have a great organization run by Phyllis and others that provide these legal services to those who need pro bono or reduced fee services.
All I can tell you is the system that you've described, we looked at, we made a decision that we couldn't do it with regard to making certain someone was physically there. They could they could work with Georgia Legal Services, and they would be working with Georgia Legal Services as a part of their pro bono requirement. However, we're trying to establish a presence that is more permanent and more institutionalized. And as a result of that, this was the best way of the minds at the table could come up with to make certain we had funding in place to try to deal with the expenses they were going to have for the repayment of enormous debt. 2, that they would have a receptivity of the counties, and I've gone to all of the counties, visit with the county commissioners, distributed resolutions already to them to make certain that they were interested. And then 3, to make certain that we had ability through Georgia Legal Services and some other attorneys to supervise what's happening with these folks who are going to be out in the field and out kind of all by themselves. But it was just a start. We're hoping that this program gets expanded to other areas just to make certain if there is a shortage in any county in Georgia, it would be dealt with. Yes, sir.
Madam President, I'm a judge in the Dublin Judicial Circuit, and I have to just say amen to what you have just said with regard to Georgia Legal Services providing lawyers in the country. We are served by the Macon office, and there are some very fine lawyers in that office, and I love it when they show up in court because they take the burden off of us in having to deal with pro se litigants. But the fact of the matter is they flat cannot serve the need.
There is not enough people there, and to get them to come out of Macon to Dublin is almost a joke. I mean, it does not happen. So the reality of it is there is a need for lawyers in these small counties. The reality also is it's going to be extremely difficult for them to survive.
Yes, it is.
In these small counties. And so anything we can do to help these people streamline this process, and it will be a matter of encouragement. And I have to echo what Judge Smith says, that there's just too much bureaucracy built into this thing as it stands. I wish this were a program that could be administered more directly through a single agency rather than they have to mimic what the doctors do. The doctors have insurance to fund them. They have loads of money to fund them. These poor guys or ladies who go out to these small counties are going to be struggling for every minute they can to make ends meet. They're not going to have time to comply with all this stuff. So I'd strongly urge y'all to look at reconsidering the bureaucracy that is built into this present system.
Well, I think we could definitely eliminate the bureaucracy if we could find the funding source independent of the state. But if we're going to find the funding source where we have discussed it being, which is through economic development, it comes with strings. And what we have done is try to minimize those strings to the fullest extent possible, but I'm telling you, it does come with strings. And some of those strings will be eliminated by virtue of the proposed rules and regulations that will be put in place in the beginning before we initiate the program. So it does kind of minimize the unforeseen nature of the bureaucracy, but it will run a little bit better than just is reflected here, because it will have some policies and procedures and regulations that will interpret this, and we will be involved in the creation of those. But if we were funding it ourselves, it wouldn't be a problem, but we're not.
Okay, if I may interrupt. The chair needs a motion regarding the issue on Keller. May I have a motion that this is germane to the practice of law? I have a first and a second on the motion that it's germane to the practice of law. All in favor? Any against? That motion passes. May I have a motion regarding this issue in front of you? To approve? It's been moved and seconded to approve. Let's continue any other discussion we have. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion passing, please signify by saying aye. Any against? The chair is confused. The chair is going to call for a hand vote. May I have, pardon me? Just stand? Okay. All those in favor, please rise. We're going to have to count. And please remain standing. If you'll take one, too, please. One section. Work it out. Jack, will you take the center section? I'll take the second section. Let Pat know. Rita, if you get with Pat, let him know.
Pat? Pat? Count me. I thought he was double checking.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Pat, are you satisfied with the count right now? All right. Well, wait a second.
This is the last one of these, right?
That's the last one.
Go tell Pat. Pat, hold on one second over here, please. Okay. Okay, all those that have stood up, please sit down. Now, those that are against, please rise. Okay, the vote is 74 for, 35 against, so the motion passes. Madam President, I pass the gavel.
Thank you. I think that's the last action on the legislative action items. Thank you very much, members of the Board of Governors, for your input and time in this. It did take a little bit of time, but we appreciate your patience. All right, our next item on the agenda deals with a report from Thomas about the upcoming legislative year, as well as we have our lobbyists that he's going to introduce for you that are here with us today, too.
Good morning. I will make sure to keep this very brief, but I do want to update the board on what your team is hearing and what your team is anticipating the focus of this session being. As you know, the session convenes this coming Monday with the swearing in of the state constitutional officers and all the new members of the General Assembly. This year, the big ticket items will be transportation and tax reform. Especially transportation are going to require both parties needing each other and both chambers needing each other. So there will be a lot of high-level, in-depth discussions on the topic of transportation, taking up the vast majority of the beginning of the session. Thankfully, that doesn't affect the State Bar of Georgia or the practice of law, but those will be what you're reading about in the paper. Tax reform, as I mentioned, will be the same thing. You'll also see some very interesting topics like pari-mutuel betting. I think you'll have competing bills on that. So those are going to kind of be the big ticket items. We will begin finding sponsors and begin the legislative process for the 4 proposals you adopted at the Jekyll Island meeting, plus the 9 proposals that you adopted here this morning. I want to take the opportunity to introduce your legislative team. It is the same as last year, but Rusty Sewell, Roy Robinson, Meredith Weaver, they are all here. If you guys will stand up or raise your hand. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us directly. Our cells and our emails are on the State Bar website. And lastly, I would be remiss if I did not encourage you to sign up for the State Bar Action Network. That email was rolled out Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. It is an online web-based technology portal that allows us to communicate very quickly with you, for you to monitor not only the State Bar's legislative agenda, but also all other pieces of legislation that affect our profession. And it also connects you very easily with your representative and senator. It went out in an email to all the membership. Please definitely click through those links and sign up for that. It's a technology that we're very excited about, and we think you will definitely see the benefits of that rapid communication. So with that, I will answer any questions that the board may have. Madam President, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like for you all to give an applause to the people on the ACL committee, the chair of the ACL committee, Thomas Worthy, and our lobbyists. They've done a fantastic job, and although I understand you all think you haven't had enough time with all these 9 things, we have been doing this for hours, and they have put in a lot of time and effort and research. So let's give them all a round of applause for the work that they've done. Okay, we want to let you know that, commend to your attention the minutes from the advisory committee, which are in the book. We will now move into elections for the nominations for our next State Bar officers ballot. And what we will do is we will move forward as listed with the officers as in that order, and we will take nominations as supposed to be limited to 5 minutes and second speeches to 2 minutes. And I really encourage you to try to stay within those time parameters, please, nominators and seconders. I will start with the office of treasurer. Are there any nominations for treasurer?
Madam President?
Yes, sir. Mr. Elmore, would you come forward and make your nomination?
Mr. Chief Justice, Madam President, I am Damon Elmore, and I rise to nominate Pat O'Connor for the position of Treasurer of the State Bar of Georgia. Pat, for those who may not know who you are, if you just raise your hand and let everyone know. Pat's been practicing law in Savannah for more than 30 years, and as a native of Savannah, that's almost good enough for me. After all, Savannah is home to the 2014-2015 Georgia High School Association Class 2A football champion Benedictine Cadets, my alma mater, so I would need to mention that. But there's more to Pat that supports my nomination and should ultimately support your vote. Pat's law practice concentrates on business litigation, the defense of legal malpractice and other professional negligence claims. He also represents plaintiffs in select personal injury and wrongful death cases. He's also a mediator and an arbitrator, having been a founding member of the Georgia Academy of Mediators and Arbitrators, so a little something for everyone there. But there's more. His record of service, his activities with the State Bar, and other related activities are quite remarkable. As you know, he's currently secretary of our bar. He is or has been president of the Savannah Bar Association, president of the Savannah Young Lawyers Section, president of the Coastal Empire Council of the Boy Scouts of America, a member of the American Bar Association, a member of the 11th Circuit Lawyer Qualifications Committee, a member of the State Bar of Georgia Commission on Continuing Legal Competency, member of the Georgia Southern University Foundation of Trustees. He's been on our executive committee since 2012, on our Board of Governors since 2004, on the ACL, the CCLC, the Disciplinary Rules and Procedures, the Elections, ICLE, Board of Trustees, and other bar committees. He's a fellow of the American College of Trial Lawyers and a member of the American Board of Trial Advocates, and he is an award winner, having received the Savannah Bar Association's Professionalism Award, among others. But there's more. Pat has been married to Carol for 33 years. He has 3 sons, Tyler, Thomas, and Tate. He has an undergraduate degree from Auburn, and his JD is from Georgia Law School. But there's still more. And this part is the most important for me. So I asked several people that I trust and respect. And now that I think about it, if I didn't ask you, I just didn't have a chance to see you. Now that I just don't trust or respect you, sorry about that. But I asked them what they thought about Pat. And in no fewer than 3 of those conversations, people told me that Pat is and will be a good leader. He is and will be a good leader. And so for that is good enough for me, and I offer will be good enough for us. So I urge your support with Pat, for Pat, in his bid become treasurer of our State Bar of Georgia. Thank you.
Is there a second? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm Susan Cox from Statesboro, and I'm very pleased to second Pat's nomination. When I understood what Damon was going to have to say about him, I told Pat, I said, he hasn't left me anything to say. You're not leaving me any choice but to contact your classmate, Lawton Stevens, to get my material. Pat told me if I did that, he probably wouldn't be able to put his name in the hat for treasurer, so I had to come up with a plan B. And my first thought was, well, I'll just ask Harvey Waits what I should say. It's not the first time since Harvey died that I wanted to run something by him, and I know it probably won't be the last time either. But I do know that Harvey is here in spirit, because I had a conversation with Harvey maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago at one of these about his long-standing service on the executive committee and how he still traveled around the state for all those meetings. And I said, Harvey, how long are you going to do this? And he said, well, I'm waiting on Pat O'Connor. I'm ready to leave now, but I need for Pat to take my place. And I said, you don't want somebody from your firm to take your place? He said, no. The State Bar needs Pat. Pat says there's too much on his plate right now, so I'm waiting for Pat. The day Pat steps up to the plate, you will not see me on the executive committee anymore. So I know that Harvey joins me in seconding Pat's nomination for this position. Because Pat has primarily a defense practice in Savannah, and because I have primarily a plaintiff's practice in Statesboro, I have managed to pretty regularly sue his clients through the years. In fact, he's defending the commissioners of Effingham County in a case right now. And in every instance, not just for me, but for other lawyers, when Pat is on the other side, he is the definition of professionalism. He is an able and zealous advocate for his client's position, but he is also a cooperative and considerate attorney on the other side. It is not a coincidence that he received the Frank Cheatham Professionalism Award from the Savannah Bar, and that is a big deal in Chatham County, I can tell you. I have waited as long as 3 months for Pat to mediate one of my cases because I knew that if we could get into Pat's conference rooms with his skills, he'd be able to bring people together and get that case resolved. So I personally can't think of any better skill set for bar leadership than someone who is a professional, an enthusiastic and able advocate for his position, but can also be considerate and courteous and professional in hearing the other side and in bringing people who may not agree together. But the real reason I want to second Pat's nomination for this position is that I know he lives in Savannah, and I know he practices with the prestigious Savannah law firm, but I also know, because he was only a couple years behind me at Statesboro High, that he is really a Statesboro boy, married to a Statesboro girl, Carol Darby. And so having Pat be treasurer of the State Bar will continue the persistent and not at all subtle effort by the Statesboro Bar to take over State Bar politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cox, for your second. Are there any other nominations for the office of treasurer? Seeing that there are no other nominations, is there a motion to close the nominations for treasurer? All right, the second. All in favor of closing the nominations, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed, say nay. Congratulations, Pat. We're moving on to the office of secretary. Are there any nominations for the office of secretary? All right. Hello, Judge.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm Lawton Stevens. I'm a judge from Athens. It's my pleasure to nominate my friend Brian Buck Rogers for Secretary of the State Bar. Buck, if you'll stand so we can all see it over there. When Buck first approached me and asked me to nominate him for this position, I immediately agreed. I agreed because I thought he was a man of courage. I agreed because I thought he was a man of vision. But mostly I agreed because I thought he was Darren Penn. You may well ask, do we really want another Buck in this position after the disaster that was Buck Ruffin? But couldn't we all use an extra Buck? Once I realized who Buck really was, I began to study his background, and I made some discreet inquiries into his personal life. I have discovered that Buck is one of the most accomplished and well-rounded individuals that you could ever hope to meet. He's been on the Board of Governors since 2009. He's served as president of the Georgia Trial Lawyers Association, and he's a current member of the Executive Committee, and he loves Shakespeare. He's a partner in the firm of Freed Rogers Goldberg, LLC. His practice focuses primarily on representing plaintiffs in catastrophic tractor-trailer collisions, which makes him uniquely qualified to clean up the train wreck created by the current Secretary, Pat O'Connor. We just can't stand Pat in this position. While Buck concentrates mostly on civil work, he also serves as a Fulton County magistrate judge which, as we all know, is where the real money is. He's a proud graduate of the University of Georgia, where he was a member of the decathlon team. He's a loyal bulldog. He's a less proud graduate of the law school of that athletic powerhouse known as Vanderbilt University. He holds a Class A commercial driver's license. Don't we all? He likes to fly, mostly in an airplane. He likes to water ski barefooted, which really helps smooth out those corns. While his main office is in Atlanta, he actually lives on a 30-acre farm in Newton County, where he enjoys moonlight tractor rides, hunting, fishing, horseback riding, and throwing pots. Buck Rogers is an excellent attorney. He has practice all over the state. He's been on just about every bar committee that exists, and he'll do a great job for us as secretary. So I'm proud to nominate Buck Rogers.
Thank you, Judge Stevens. Is there a second? I pass President Clark.
Good morning, everyone. Madam President, thank you. Members of the Executive Committee and members of the Board of Governors. I'm Robin Fraser Clark, and I feel like I know everyone in this room. I always made it a point to try to know every single person on this board. It's a great board, but in case you don't know me, I'm a past president, and everybody said, oh, it's so great to be past. Just wait, past is the best word. You'll love that job. And it is, you know, it's nice, but I felt a little out of things. I'm not on the board anymore. I'm not on the executive committee anymore. I miss it. I was just delighted to find out that I still get a board book. I was so excited when it came in the mail. And so when Buck asked me to second his nomination for secretary, I eagerly, of course, said yes. I'd be happy to. I've known Buck for a long time. I never like to tell people how long I've known them or been friends with them, because it gives you a clue about my age. And if I told you how long Buck and I have been friends, it would not speak well about my age. But we've been friends for a very long time, and we've worked together in many capacities. And so I can second his nomination without reservation and tell you without reservation he'll be a great officer of the bar. We've worked together in Georgia Trial Lawyers. I was president of Georgia Trial Lawyers many years ago, and Buck worked with me in that organization, and then he became president of GTLA. And although GTLA is a much smaller organization than the bar, I'll be willing to say the egos in GTLA can hang right in there with the egos of the state bar. And so to be able to handle that and all that comes through GTLA is a true mark of a great leader. GTLA president requires you to be at the Capitol almost every day of the session. And so Buck has had a lot of experience with the legislature and will be a great representative for us down there as an officer of the state bar. Also, when I was president, Buck was on my executive committee. And as a president, you need folks who are going to surround you with wisdom, good judgment, good advice, honesty, and loyalty. And all of those qualities, I can tell you, Buck Rogers has. He will be a great representative for you in the state bar. He always says, what's the best, here's the standard, what's the best thing for the bar and what's the best thing for the profession of law? If you keep those two things in mind, you're going to make good judgments. And Buck has always demonstrated that. So I proudly second the nomination of Buck Rogers and ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Past President Clark. Are there any other nominations for the office of secretary? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations on the said one name. Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, same sign, say nay. Congratulations. And now we're moving to the office of President-elect. Are there any nominations for President-elect? Hi there, Ms. Hardy. Come forward. I guess you say Lawrence Hardy.
I Good morning, Madam President. I love saying that. Members of the Executive Committee, members of the Board of Governors, all of our guests. It is my honor to rise to nominate the member of this body who needs no introduction. I'm not even going to have her stand. Rita, will you please wave at us so we all know? Rita Sheffy. It's my honor, my pleasure, my privilege to nominate Rita Sheffy as the next president-elect of the State Bar of Georgia. You all know Rita. You know that she has devoted her career to inspiring lawyers to serve society, regardless of the career path that they choose. She's been well known to us for many years. She currently serves as our treasurer and was secretary last year. She's been a member of the Board of Governors since 2009 and a member of the Executive Committee since 2011. She has been chair of or a member of numerous state bar committees and boards. You already probably know that Rita has practiced law for 27 years at Hunton & Williams, and that her practice has focused on complex environmental as well as patent and trademark infringement litigation. You've probably heard that she was the 2011 and 2012 president of the Atlanta Bar Association, and she serves as the Atlanta Bar's delegate to the American Bar Association. The Atlanta Bar announced the Rita A. Sheffy Public Interest Award in 2012 in her honor and named her its first recipient. She also received the Atlanta Bar's Distinguished Service Award in 2010 and in 2013. She served as president of the Atlanta Legal Aid Society. And you may recall from the last time that I nominated her that you could refer to her as Dr. Sheffy, and I'm not referring to her JD, although I'm happy to call anyone here doctor if they'd like. Rita has a PhD in chemistry from Duke University and did a postdoc at the Harvard Medical School. Before earning a JD from Boston College Law School, she went to University of Virginia prior to Boston College Law School and Duke University. And I talked about her affiliation with the Atlanta Bar of the Atlanta Legal Aid Society. You may not know that Rita is a small-town girl at heart, having grown up in rural Southwest Virginia. There is no doubt, however, that you know that Rita is the epitome of a servant leader. She has devoted her entire career to public interest law from inside a big law firm, and stands as an example to all of us, and I definitely include myself in this, challenging those of us in large law firms to remember the importance of contributing to society wherever we sit, blooming where we're planted. Her commitment inspires all of us, challenges all of us to remember that lawyers are service professionals and that we're in a service profession. At Hunton & Williams, she has logged over 100 or more pro bono hours every single year for the last 20 years. As Hunton's pro bono partner, she developed several new initiatives, including a pro bono clinic in 1995 entitled the Southside Legal Center, and as well as a guardian ad litem program with local juvenile court. As a result, every single one of Hunton's 44 Atlanta lawyers have performed some form of public service work annually for the last 7 years, though it's not a firm requirement. And this week, you probably all know, she is a newsmaker. You probably read the big news yesterday when it was announced that on January the 20th, Rita will become Emory University School of Law's first ever public service dean. Her vision in this role is to expose all of the Emory Law students to public interest law and public service in some way so that they, quote, can realize that you can incorporate that into any type of career, close quote. In this role, she will help ensure that students, graduates, faculty, and staff live up to the Emory Law mission to serve the community and advance the rule of law. I think you can agree with me, she will challenge us all in this body and across the state in that regard as well. Emory Law Dean Robert Shapiro observed of Rita's career that it, quote, demonstrates an extraordinary commitment to public service and exemplifies the highest ideals of the profession, close quote. Again, Rita is the epitome of a servant leader, and as he says, her career really challenges us all to take a moment and reflect on how we're contributing. As we have this conversation about salaries for our lawyers serving in the public interest, it's important that we recognize what Rita has really demonstrated by her career, which is that all of us can serve no matter where we are. Rita will give the State Bar of Georgia nothing less than her best, as she has done for so many years. As president-elect, she will focus on ensuring that the bar serves its members to the best of its ability. She will also continue to challenge and inspire us all to remember the highest ideals of our profession. She'll make us proud, and I'm proud to nominate her today. Thank you.
Is there a second? Are you coming to the second? Well, past President Enfield, welcome, welcome.
It's good to always be back up in front of the Board of Governors. And Madam President, congratulations on an outstanding year. Jeff, you're doing a wonderful job. Everybody's doing a wonderful job up here, once they got rid of me. I rise, and it is a distinct honor and a pleasure to second the nomination of Rita Sheffy as President-elect of the State Bar of Georgia. She comes with some unique qualifications. Of course, we know, we heard from the nominator, she graduated from the University of Virginia. She went on and then got a degree from Duke University, unusual degree, but a degree that particularly qualifies her for this position. It is a degree in kinetics of the bovine specimen. Now, she then came home during Christmas of her senior year of getting her PhD, and she ran into Lawton Stevens. She decided to drive over to Athens to just see the campus because she was looking at several areas that taught science. And she ran into Lawton Stevens, who was going to have a very bright, energetic person. And she talked with him for about an hour. And she figured out, you know, I've been studying bull all my life. And that man's got a lot of bull. So I think I'll go to law school so I can spread some bull. She then went to Boston University and got her law degree and came back to Atlanta because she couldn't take as much bull as Lawton Stevens could dish out. If you get a chance and you need to read a resume, it takes a while just to read her resume. She is always involved, always a leader, and that's what we need as president of the State Bar, a true leader, a person who can see into the future, has dreams, and say that's where we need to go. And she will take us that way. She's done an outstanding job, as you've heard, at Hunton Williams, and now she is going to Emory University Law School and do the public service. I don't know how much that will involve the bull, but I'm sure she'll call on Lawton Stevens if she needs to spread any. Dean of Public Service over there is an outstanding job from what the newspaper article, and I got the opportunity to read it also. But let's talk about what she's done for the State Bar of Georgia. She has served on just about every committee on the State Bar. When I was president, she was involved in the State Bar. She served on the committees. She went forward. She did great jobs. You never had to worry about her completing her task, completing it on time, and doing an outstanding job. She has received awards and served on the board of Atlanta Victims Assistance Program, the Board of Trustees of the Boys Speak Out, and Sandy Springs Conservancy. But let me tell you how I really got to know Rita and her outstanding abilities. I was appointed some years ago, ran in got the job as an ABA delegate, something I enjoy very much. And I've only had to miss one meeting. That's because I had to be in the hospital. But she is a delegate that really represents the state of Georgia on the American Bar Association. She never misses a meeting. She's always prepared. Generally, we sit either next to each other or one person apart. That she does a great job there. Recently, I was called and said, would you appear on a panel for the Chief Justice Professionalism Committee? And I was happy to. Once she told me what it was about, I was taken back a little bit, but then I decided to go ahead and serve on that committee. But Rita was the moderator of it, and it went off great. I'd have to tell you that it was one of the best programs I probably have ever been on, not because of me, but I'll tell you how interesting it was. My wife said she would come in for just a few minutes because we had to find a place to park, and then she would leave. She ended up staying the whole day listening to that program. It was on aging in the law, and that's the reason I'm not old. So why you want me on aging in the law? Come to find out, they wanted my daughter to tell stories on me about what getting old is about. But she was the moderator, and she did an outstanding job. We had numerous telephone conferences of what we would cover. We had doctors appear and tell, and then we had actual people who are having problems because of age appear on this committee. And it was a very interesting committee, and it turned out to be a great job. They say if you want a job done, you get a busy person. Well, you've seen and heard all of what she is involved in, and she's very busy. But I can tell you from serving on that committee with her, she never lets, most of our conferences were at lunch, and she's well organized, she's professional, she's on time. I've gotten 6 emails. Keep this to 2 minutes, Gerald. So, Rita, am I on my 2-minute mark? Her husband told me last night, now she wants you to be punctual. She wants you up and down. So, I'm trying to comply with my 2 minutes. But I would like to second the nomination for President-elect of the State Bar of Georgia, Rita Sheffey. I believe we could have no better person in that position and to go on to become President of the State Bar of Georgia if she does not get tied up with Lawton Stevens. Talk to you. Thank you now.
Thank you, Past President Field. Are there any other nominations for the office of President-elect? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the nomination on the said one name. Is it second? Second. It's been properly moved and second that we close the nomination on the said one name. And congratulations, Ms. Sheffey, on your nomination. For those of you who are new, we're not formally congratulating these folks as actually having the office because the nominations for write-in candidates still goes through March, and the ballot comes out in April, and so they are the only nominated candidates on the ballot, but we just wanted you to know that's the reason why we're not saying that. All right, we have nominations for ABA delegates that will also appear on the ballot in April. And the first is for the post currently held by Lester Tate, which is post 2. Are there any nominations? Yes, ma'am. Madam Past President Clark.
Madam President, I move to nominate Lester Tate to succeed himself in that position of that post for the ABA delegate.
Okay, thank you. These nominations, because I think they're just nominations for the ballot, don't require seconds. Is that correct, Paula? Okay, is there a second?
I second the nomination of Lester Tate.
Thank you.
Anything that gets Lester out of the state for a number of days is something we should all be able to get behind.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Terry. Are there any other nominations for the post 2 position for ABA delegate? All right. Is there a motion to close the nominations for post 2? All right, second? All in favor of closing the nomination on the said one name, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, so that will be, the listed name will be Lester Tate, continuing in his post at post 2. Are there any nominations for post 4, currently held by Donna Barwick?
Madam President, I rise to nominate Donna Barwick for re-election to post 4.
Okay, thank you.
And I yield the balance of my time to Gerald Enfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lipscomb. Is there a second?
Good morning. I rise to second the nomination of Donna Barwick for position 4 to the ABA delegates.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth Fife. Are there any other nominations for post 4? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the nominations for this particular post on the said one name? Is there a second? All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. All right. Congratulations. We're closing the nominations for post 2. We just Donna Barwick on the ballot. So congratulate Swarwick, huh? For post 4, that's correct. And then Lester for post 2. Post 6 won't appear because it is automatically, according to our bylaws, to be held by the immediate past president. Are there any other issues that we need to bring forth for action before the body? All right, now we are moving into informational reports. Do we need to have, does the body require a break? If you do, kind of go as you feel the need, because we're trying to make certain we keep moving through this. But y'all been incredibly patient, so thank you. I'm going to be brief with my report in order to make certain we get out of here as scheduled, and we do want to have all the reports that are indicated. I have continued my practice of documenting or chronicling, if you will, my journey as president, and from pages 196 to 200 of your board book, you get a chance to see what I've done each and every month. But broadly, what I have been doing is traveling the state to represent the bar. As you remember, one of my third initiatives was to make the bar more relevant to its members and to encourage the participation of members in the bar. And we've been working on that steadily. I have been everywhere from Valdosta north to, I think the furthest north I've been so far is Cherokee, but I need to come back to your meeting. I've come every year, David Cannon can tell you, for the last 4 years, actually. And I have responded to requests every time someone has invited the bar president to show up, whether it's to swear in officers, to speak to leadership programs, to be at dinners. I have done my best to make certain I fulfill my duties as president. I have also supported all of the bar programs, including the Access to Justice program, the Georgia Legal Services program, which was spun off from the bar, but I've been at their awards programs, their award ceremonies. I have helped with the Journey Through Justice program, as well as to help them get some PR through television coverage of one of the trials of the 3 pigs from the local press. I have worked with the orientation, a lot on the orientation of our new executive director and helping him get up to speed with his duties and responsibilities. I have worked to support the younger lawyers in their programs, attended their major events, as well as been a speaker for their YLD women's group. And that was actually a wonderful tea where I was joined by Linda Klein, and 2 of us just sat around and talked to 28 ladies in a kind of cozy, talking about the cozy atmosphere, having tea and talking about bar service. It was a fantastic event. I have started a process now of taping our meetings. I have heard enough about what happened and what didn't happen and allegations. So now we are having taped meetings that we're going to put on the board, the bar's website, so that members can get a chance to see our meetings and understand what's going on. I started this process when I was secretary. I started posting the meeting minutes online. As I was treasurer, I kept up with the financial reports in addition to the audit, which had already been there. And now I'm working on the meetings themselves. That way our members can have an opportunity. They may not take advantage of it, but they will have an opportunity to see what we do here. It has been my pleasure to reach out to the local bar associations, and I really want to thank a couple of people who have made these tasks possible. And I don't know if Randy Davis is here, but the pilot of Bar Force One, is what we nicknamed him, has been a truly God-sent blessing to us as we have traversed the state. I also want to commend Jeff Davis, who has gone with me through the majority of my journeys throughout the state, and then Thomas Worthy, who's been my sidekick for several of them, especially to all of the local bars. But I've traveled to all of these counties, these rural counties that we talked about for this program, in order to get a feel for the county, the conditions in the county, to talk to the county commissioners. And that's been a labor of love and a passion, and I'm going to tell you, I have had my eyes opened by what I have seen in the areas by just personally going there. I heard a lot, I read a lot before I went, but there's nothing like going there and seeing the destitute situation that poor people, they're not even underemployed, they're poor people in these counties with small populations. And then what's happening with justice. I mean, when you drive into a county and the county manager tells you, be careful of our sheriff, be careful of speeding in our county because our sheriff is just unbridled. He can't be controlled. He'll arrest you. It's a speed trap. Don't go above 30 miles an hour. And I got a witness. Jeff was with me at the time. He threatened us, just gave us the heads up because there's nobody there to put him in check. That was a little troubling. In fact, it was very troubling. And that they need to warn visitors at the county manager's office of the problem. But there was nobody in that county who would even take him on. So going out there, you become convinced. I also want to applaud the coverage in the Fulton County Daily Report about the myriad of variations on the theme about this problem. It was actually an outstanding coverage to have 6 pages dedicated to this topic. It is a major topic. It is a big issue. It's a heavy lift. We know we're working on some challenges, and people are always resistant to change, but it's going to happen. We're going to do it the best that we can to try to make it happen. And who will benefit from it most are those people in those counties where there are 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people. Despite some of them having the best academic institutions in the state for elementary and secondary education. Glasscock is one of them, and their county commission chair was proud of that. There are 3 county commissioners, all of them are women, and they're doing a fantastic job in Glasscock, so I wanted to at least let you know that they're the #1 performing school system in the state of Georgia with 3,000 people. So I want you to know I've learned a lot, and I have been a lot of places. And I am doing the best I can to represent you well. The other 2 initiatives I'm working, well, you already heard the first initiative was dealing with reaching out to provide access to justice throughout the state, and that's the Rural Lawyer Program. You're seeing it progress. The second one is the iCivics program, and I'm here to tell you proudly that with the help of the YLD, we have 163 lawyers paired up with 163 teachers to reach 20,000 students in those 5 school systems. So we're making a difference on the next generation of people who will be citizens of our state on their concept of what civics is. So we're looking forward to expanding that program going forward. We haven't spent any more money since the day I told you last time, with $25,000, 20,000 people. In fact, it's not even 25, I've been told by Steve, it's a little less than that. So we're working on that. And I have, I guess, provided opinions, comments on various topics for various different types of groups. I tell you, as bar president, you get asked about a lot of things, especially in days like this, where you have everything from Ferguson to New York to, Paris. It doesn't matter what's happening. There's a wide range of legal issues and legal rights that have been infringed upon that your bar president has been opining on, and I have remembered who I represent, but I've been also eloquent in the representation of the concern for the principle of law. The other thing that I want to just let you know as a president is that we are going to be moving forward with our celebration of the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta. That will take place in March, I think March 18th through the 31st. We will actually have the exhibit at the Bar Center open to the public as well as lawyers, because you're part of the public as well. And so I encourage you to come down there. I encourage you to bring your kids down there and help them understand why it's relevant. I have featured in my president's article for the next journal, which should come out at the time that the exhibit is traveling, the connection between the Magna Carta, our Constitution of the United States, and then some of the other historic milestones this year, the 5th of my term, which goes from 2014 to 2015, that include the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Voters' Rights Act, the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the 50th anniversary of the March on Selma, Alabama. All of these are connected in that the Magna Carta was the document that established the principle to say that there should be no denial of personal liberty or property without due process of law. And so all of these types of things are connected together because they have protected and preserved rights that people identified that were important to them 800 years ago. So I'm looking forward to you all finding out more information about that and to hopefully spread the word about that celebration. Now, a lot of people know about the Magna Carta. It is a very interesting, very interesting topic, but it doesn't get discussed very often. But it's a very thick document. It had a lot of history and significance, and we should recognize that. And I applaud Buck for creating the committee, and then Ken Shigley for chairing it and keeping it going despite being very busy, and all of the members of the Magna Carta Committee, most of whom are not here because they are academics and they're involved with their respective schools. But Ken is back here. Thank you very much, Ken. I applaud you for all that work. It's great. It's going to be a wonderful program, and the symposium is on the 30th, right? There's a day-long symposium that you will see more information about coming forward as well. Does anybody have any questions about any of the materials I provided to you under my president's report? All right, then I will move forward and move to the next report, which is our treasurer, Rita Sheffrin.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, everyone. Hope you'll indulge me just a brief moment of personal comment to say thanks to all of you for the nomination this morning for President-elect. I'm incredibly honored by the nomination, and I'm particularly honored by the generous comments from Allegra Lawrence Hardy and Gerald Edenfield. There really aren't words to describe how I feel about that, so thank you both very much. I also want to acknowledge one person in the audience this morning because you heard of my new position in I guess 10 days from today. I'll be the new Assistant Dean for Public Service at Emory, and Dean Robert Shapiro is here with us this morning, and it means a lot to me to have him here to join us as well. So thank you, Dean Shapiro. Well, it's been an honor to serve as your president. Oh, wow, moving ahead. As your treasurer this morning, wow. Let's move right ahead. We'll skip over Bob, and that sounds great. Hey. No comment to that. An honor to serve as your treasurer this year, and I wanted to make a couple general comments that we haven't really talked about this, but there are some people that need to be recognized in that regard, and that's our Chief Financial Officer, Steve Lane, who's down front, and also his staff. He's got an amazing staff, and in the 7 months, I guess, that I've spent as treasurer, I've spent a lot of time with them, and I cannot tell you how wonderful they all are, how careful, detail-oriented, how they make sure that all of the documentation that's attached to the requests for reimbursement and for payments it's just unbelievable what a great job that they do, and it makes my job so easy, and they ensure that when we're paying something that we have the necessary contracts in place, that we're sticking to our budget. It's just really been a delight to work with all of them. And I've also had, in that regard, the opportunity to work closely with our executive director, Jeff Davis. Jeff and I both sign the checks that come through, and so we've spent a lot of time going through the checks and making sure that what we're presented is appropriate and that we're all being good stewards of your money, of all of our members' dues, and our money with the bar. So I think you can be confident that we're doing the best job that we can and that we take our fiscal responsibilities very seriously. To get into the report for today, you have materials in your board book on pages 2003 to 2007. You also have a page that has the schedule, the timeline for the budget approval process. I think it's on 208. So 203 to 207 and then 208, I believe. And so if you, I'll refer you to those, but we're going to go through just a couple of slides quickly to give you an update, and then Steve or I would be happy to answer any questions. And so the most important one is the first slide, and this may look familiar from the November 1st meeting. The State Bar of Georgia is in excellent fiscal condition. We have continued to experience steady member growth and solid bar center performance. And if we go to the next slide, it'll show you a summary of where we are after the first 5 months, and this is through November 30th, the first 5 months of our fiscal year. And it obviously looks like we're in great position because we have most of the dues money that's in, and we haven't yet experienced a lot of the expenses that, of course, will come as the year moves forward. The next slide will show you about our bar membership, which continues to be strong. The new passing list at the end of October showed just over 1,100 new attorneys. So we've definitely seen a bump in that regard, and we're continuing to experience that. We're not sure what will happen with that over the next few years. Perhaps in my new role, I'll have a better insight into what's going on in that regard. The next slide will show us about dues collection, and of course we do collect most of the dues earlier in the year. It shows our dues collection through the end of December on that, which continues to be very strong. Obviously the new lawyers who have been sworn in are paying their dues now, so we're starting to see that. We do see in the right-hand side of that slide a little bit of lag in terms of the percentage of prior year's members paid. But we hope that that will pick up a little. We may lose a few folks as we go through the year, but we'll know a little better as we get into the next couple of reports. The next one shows you voluntary contributions by dues year, and there's a couple of things to note here. One, the legislative funds have dropped a little bit compared to the past several years, and I'm sure that Thomas Worthy and our legislative team would like to see that number start back up, but it continues to be strong, but it has dropped a little bit from where we were a couple of years ago. The Georgia Legal Services contributions actually appear to be up a little bit, so that's good news. Hopefully the various efforts that we've made over the last year or two are helping support that, and we hope that that will continue as well. The next slide is no surprise to anyone and hasn't changed any since our last report. Our investment yield continues to be pretty low. The next slide is going to show you our portfolio composition, which has not changed in several years. The president has appointed an investment committee, and I anticipate that that committee will meet in the near future for the purpose of evaluating our portfolio composition and making recommendations as to whether we should make any changes in terms of our investments going forward. So again, that's not anything new that you haven't seen before. The next slide shows our reserves, and again, this is similar. We have our $250,000 litigation reserve, our $2.75 million operating reserve, and our $2 million bar center reserve on the left. So that's money that we can't touch, that's restricted for those purposes. And then you see our surplus on the right, which is still, this is all still as of the end of our last fiscal year, so we won't see any new numbers on this until we get to the end of the current fiscal year. And then the next slide, again, just shows our total cash picture. This was as of the end of September, so if you're interested in how it breaks out and where our money goes, what the percentages are of the different types of categories that we have, and again, you'll see the various surpluses in the litigation reserves, as well as the legislative fund and others there. So that's, we'll go to the next slide, and if any of you have any questions, try to go through it fairly quickly. As I said, at this point in the year, we're 7 months in, but there's not anything dramatic up or down that we can report. We seem to be on track with where we would expect to be at this point in our year. Does anybody have any questions for me or for Steve Lane? And if not, then thank you very much. Thanks, Madam President.
Now I'm going to have a report from our Younger Lawyers Division President, Sherry Edenfield.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your attention. I know it's been a long meeting, but I just want to give you a brief update on what the YLD is doing. And Sarah's going to hand me the clicker. Thank you. All right. As you know, the very first part of my year, I described the emphasis for our year would be on service, education, and leadership. And there's essentially three different components to that: a military support initiative, the legislative initiative, or the long-range planning initiative, and the professional development initiative. Okay, as you can see here, these are all the different components to how the YLD is supporting veterans and active duty service members. There are several clinics around the state where we are volunteering legal services on a pro bono basis. Yesterday, we held a VA accreditation CLE that was very well attended. We had about 40 or 45 people come and attend and get certified to represent veterans on benefit appeals. And we also had a YLD member, Katie Dodd, whose father just retired after 37 years as a VA ALJ, come and speak to us, from giving us perspectives from the bench. Of course, we're reaching out to the JAG officers around the state. And what I really want to talk to you about is how we are supporting the Augusta Warrior Project this year for our signature fundraiser, which will be held February 28th, 2015, here in Atlanta. And you should have a flyer at your seat. If you don't, please let me know, and I will be sure to get you a flyer so that you can purchase tickets or find out more information. But honestly, you don't need a flyer. If you just go to georgiaYLD.org, you can purchase tickets there and also be able to pay to become a sponsor. What I do want to show you is a very, very short, less than 5-minute clip on 3 different veterans who have been helped through this program. I think it'll give you a better idea of what you're supporting and the impact that your dollars will make. Sarah, can you hit that video link?
I was in a little bitty outpost called Marquis in Afghanistan, and during the attack on the outpost, my truck was hit by a 107mm rocket, which came through the trunk between my legs and hit the inside of the windshield and detonated. My head snapped back and broke some pretty sturdy glass with the back of my helmet. I lost my right leg below the knee, lots of scars, lots of aches and pains. And it really set me back a lot further than I realized, and I didn't even know everything that I was really missing out on. And then one day, a gentleman gave the Augusta Warrior Project employee, Jim Lorraine, my information, and he called me, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm fine. You need help with anything?" "No." And he goes, "All right, well, I just want to come sit down and talk to you one day." And so he came to my house, sat down in my living room, said, "Where are you at right now? What are your goals in 5 years? What are your plans to get there?" He let me realize that there was so much more available to me. If you don't know that you have access to these giant steps to take forward, you're not going to take them. If I had to sum up in one word what the Augusta Warrior Project has been able to do for me and my family and all the different changes that they've helped me go through and everything like that, it's quite easy to find a word. And it's simply miraculous. I'm William Ware, and the AWP has been amazing for my life. Without the AWP, I'm not really sure where I'd be. I'm incredibly grateful for them because they've reached out and benefited every part of my life. They've helped me and my family become property owners. There's not much these people haven't done to help enhance my life.
I became ill back in 2000 and had several years after not being able to continue to work, where I lived with family, friends. I found myself not having a home of my own. And just by the grace of God, the Warrior Program, I was referred to them. And they called me and they empowered me by saying, "You have rights." And the Warrior Program, month to month, said, we're going to help you do this. And it was more than I could have expected. They helped me to restore everything that I lost from 2005 forward. I'm home. My name is Virginia Colbert. Welcome to my new home. AWP helped me obtain a home somewhere that I can live that is safe, and that's mine. Thank you, AWP, for giving me my hope back.
2009, 2010, I was deployed to Afghanistan. In December 2009, I was hit with the first IED blast, and I went home on leave, and then I came back, and we moved to FOB Ghazni, and from there continued conducting route clearance. And 2010, June 26th, I was hit again, and that IED blast was pretty rough. I lost 2 close brothers there. Basically, when I got back, I felt very much alone. I went through the VA. They helped out some, but it's not the one-on-one treatment that I needed. I held a lot of things in, and it was very difficult to cope with the stress and anxiety getting back into the civilian population. I wasn't transitioning well at all. When I met Jim in the Augusta Warrior Project, I was to the point where we were about to lose our house, our cars, the family. I mean, it was just falling apart. Jim had called and made things happen to move faster, where we were able to get our VA compensation to help back pay all of the bills that it had incurred. I have no doubt in my mind that if it weren't for the Augusta Warrior Project, I would be homeless right now. My name is Adam Pennington, and the AWP saved my life. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the AWP. They impacted my life so much, and they saved my life. It means everything to me to be able to turn around and give back to the community.
All right. Well, as you can see, this is an outstanding program, and I'll tell you the reason it was selected, or several reasons it was selected. First of all, the YLD, as you know, has a signature fundraiser and has every year since 2007. And while we've had a variety of different charitable groups that we've supported, for the most part, we've looked to support groups that are statewide, or at least will keep money in the state. And this program, though there are many to choose from that support veterans, I was particularly touched by this program because of their emphasis in connecting veterans to not only education benefits and employment benefits, but also helping them find assistance to get the veterans benefits that you're talking about, or that the last gentleman spoke about, the compensation benefits. They've also virtually eliminated homelessness in the CSRA for veterans, which is a huge problem. And they are cross-collaborating with other bases around the state, Fort Benning and Fort Stewart. Jack Long and I had the opportunity to go and visit the post on Fort Gordon back in October, and I was incredibly impressed with the organization and all that they do. And I hope you will support us. As I said, it's February 28th, 2015, and it's going to be at Terminal West, which is in the King Plow Arts Center. And if you go to georgiaYLD.org, you'll be able to purchase tickets and or to become a sponsor. My understanding is that, of course, the Augusta YLD is one of our very most active chapters. Clearly, we have an officer from the Augusta YLD, and we have lots of bar leaders from the Augusta Bar. They are very excited about the selection of this group, and my understanding as of last night from a member of the Augusta YLD is that they are trying to bring a large group of people up from Augusta, not just lawyers, but also people, veterans and family members of veterans, and really to show appreciation and also obviously to buy a ticket and support it, but to show their appreciation for being selected. So I hope you will be there. It's going to be a fabulous event, and we need your support. So The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is our long-range planning initiative. And basically, the succession planning program that I mentioned at the fall meeting is on track, and I'm excited about it. We are pending final approval of the materials by the consortium of the 5 different law schools. You'll be receiving something, I think, by the end of this month. To refresh your memory about the succession planning program, this is an idea that came out of Texas. And basically, I don't have to tell you that we have a problem with the gray wave. I have learned that that's actually what you call it by being on the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism and the Aging Task Force. Baby boomer lawyers are starting to retire, and because of the number of attorneys that are retiring, that presents a problem in areas where they don't have attorneys or an abundance of attorneys, but also it presents us opportunities to help resolve the problem of young lawyer unemployment and underemployment. And so in following the Texas model, basically we have created a consortium of representatives from the 5 different law schools who are at this point finalizing the materials, as I've said, but we'll present everyone basically one contact phone number, and that person will be the intake coordinator for any attorney, older attorney, seasoned attorney, whatever you want to call it, who's looking to make a transition out of the practice of law. And that's really on their schedule, whether it be 5 years from now, or they want to do it right away, or they want to transition into it on a very gradual basis. Whatever works is going to be fine, because in turn, by going through this one contact person, that information will be distributed to all 5 Georgia law schools and alumni and recent graduates of all 5 Georgia law schools. And so hopefully we can find someone who is interested in coming into this solo or small firm practice and provide some continuity for the clients, but also solve the lawyer unemployment or underemployment. And I will tell you some of the things, the way that the Texas program has worked is they provide the attorneys basically with the opportunity to either hire a law clerk right away who's in law school at the moment, with an eye that if it works out, they'll hire them to work as an associate and then gradually transition their files over to that young lawyer, or maybe they just are looking for a recent graduate who is willing to go out on their own but doesn't have a referral base, and they'll start referring their clients to this recent graduate with the hope that if all goes well, those clients will ultimately end up with that lawyer. So it's basically, it's not rocket science. It's just expanding the scope and the reach of the opportunities for young lawyers and also older attorneys who don't want to leave their clients high and dry, but also they want to retire. So I'm very hopeful and excited about this program, and I've gotten good responses about it. And finally, my professional development initiative. For those of you who were part of it on Thursday, I really appreciate it. Damon Elmore is here, I think, and Michael Joffroy may be here. They were the moderators for one panel on basically how to hang out your own shingle and start a law practice. And I will tell you, I'm on the older end of the Young Lawyers Division, and so while I'm definitely still a young lawyer, being right out of law school, it's been a while. And I've read all the same articles that you've probably read, and that firms are starting to hire and that things are improving. But in having we had 35, I think, people registered, and nearly 60 showed up. In fact, we had to keep bringing in chairs, which is an exciting problem to have, don't get me wrong. We ran out of coffee really fast. But one thing that I did not realize was as big an issue as it is that lawyers, young lawyers, are scared, and they're still trying to find a way to make money. In fact, one young lawyer asked the question of the panel, what do you do when you're 6 months or 9 months out on your own and there's no money coming in? How do you make it? How do you find jobs? How do you find clients? And so that's the purpose behind a lot of the initiatives that we're putting together, because not only did this teach young lawyers how to hang out a shingle, but also the very next day, which was yesterday, we had the VA accreditation CLE, and we talked about that during the program, how you can develop a niche practice because you are able to make a fee, albeit small, you are able to make a fee representing veterans on veterans benefits appeals. And so this is something I think was very popular. We had also Thomas Worthy was gracious to coordinate and moderate a panel of lawyers who serve in the General Assembly to talk about how to become a leader in your community and if you're interested, how to run for office and how to manage a practice while you're in office. And also we had a media practice panel, or I guess a media best practices panel, and how to handle social media and all these new things that pretty much everybody needs to know. So it was incredibly successful. We are also going to be hosting a Solo Small Firm Institute / Affiliates Conference, February 21st, 2015. It'll be held in Macon. I hope you'll encourage young lawyers in your community to attend. Basically, anybody who wants to learn how to open up your own practice or your own firm and how to start a trust account, how to keep up with that, how to hire people, what's the proper way to manage, your firm on a day-to-day basis, what technology do you need? These are all the topics that we're going to be talking about, as well as to provide affiliates with a forum for best practices to just develop members. So this is the first time we've ever tried it. We've put it in Macon so that, and we put it on a Saturday, so that no one has to close their office or miss any appointments with clients. It's a central part of the state, and we're hopeful that we'll get a great turnout. So please encourage young lawyers in your communities to get involved and to come. And even if you're not a young lawyer and you'd like to come, we'd welcome you. And finally, just a few other things. I've already mentioned most of these. Of course, the Solo and Small Firm Affiliates Conference will be the next thing we have coming up. The signature fundraisers the weekend after that. The GRIP program, if you are a Gwinnett County lawyer, you probably are familiar with it. It's the Gwinnett Reintegration Program for probationers. It's something we have not tried before, but we have some members who are interested in it, so we're going to give it a go. And basically, we're going to set up shop. The only reason that date's tentative is because we're not sure whether we're going to do it in the courthouse, jail, or somewhere else, but recent probationers who are trying to find employment, we are going to set up a time on a Saturday morning, March 28th most likely, where we will help them create resumes, help them, give them tips on interviewing. We're also doing a professional clothing drive so that when these probationers go on probation, they actually have a shot at staying on probation and getting off of it eventually and not going back to jail. So and we would love to have anyone. You don't have to be a Gwinnett lawyer to volunteer. We're going to try it there, and if this program works, and this is, I understand, a United Way program in Gwinnett, but if this works in Gwinnett, we may be taking this to other parts of the state. And finally, the high school mock trial. I would not be doing Justice Carly justice or fairness if I didn't mention it. We've got a lot of new teams this year. You probably, if you're a coach, I appreciate you. And if you're going to be a judge, we appreciate that as well. We always need judges. As you know, these competitions take place in the spring, and then finally the final is in March in 2015. I believe it's the 21st, and it'll be in Lawrenceville. So if you are not already involved with that, please let us know, because we definitely want to and need all the hands we can get and all hands on deck, so to speak. Any questions? Thank you very much. And before I sit down, I just want to say one thing. I see Patty Shoemaker over here, and I wanted to thank her and Norman Zoller and all the Military and Veterans Law Section leadership and leaders and the Military Legal Assistance Program for how much they've done to help the young lawyers create all the initiatives and make the opportunities available. We couldn't do it without you, and I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Now I'd like to invite one of our longest-serving members of Executive Committee who has a passion for people in need to come and make a presentation on behalf of Georgia Legal Services.
Good morning. I want to thank Patrise so much, and Rita and all the other members of the Executive Committee for their support for legal services for the poor. And I really appreciate the supportive remarks that members of the audience have offered for Georgia Legal Services as well. I was thinking last night after the dinner as I was going home how many friends I have among this audience and how special they all are, and how every time I come to a meeting like this, I meet new friends. And I've been coming to these meetings a long time and have a lot of friends. And that's very, very important for us around the state, but I just really enjoy knowing and getting to know all of you. What's also interesting about that is that all of us do something a little different. All of us have a different area of law, a different focus, different kind of work. But I think the most important thing is that we all share a belief in justice and access to justice, and the rule of law, one of my favorites. And as Justice Thompson put it, justice for all, not just for those who can afford it. My remarks have changed a little bit because of this paper that came out yesterday, and I hope you all had a chance to pick up a copy. There are piles of them around the lobby area outside. As you know, as many of you know, I hope most of you know, Georgia Legal Services provides civil legal services to people with low incomes throughout the state, 154 counties outside the metro Atlanta area. At your seats, there's a little bit of information that we failed to get into the board book, but it's just a general overview of what we do. It lists where our offices are and which counties our offices cover. There's a nice map on the back, should have been this way, but got this way, that shows where our offices are and the territories that they cover. Macon covers a lot of territory in addition to Dublin, and I'm going to talk to them, though, about coming to Dublin a little bit more. But our lawyers are in their cars, on their phones, on their cell phones, seeing clients all over the state. There's probably a Georgia Legal Services lawyer or more than one in court any day you pick somewhere in the state. But all of them, we've got some lifers with us, like me. We've got some long-term staff who do it for the love of justice and the reward of working with clients. There are some client stories, which I would commend to you in these materials. They're short, they're easy to read. There are some client testimonials in these materials. We've had victims of domestic violence say to us that we've literally saved their lives, literally saved their lives. We had one client whose husband punched her in the eye, and we were able to straighten out the Medicaid situation, so she was able to get surgery to save her sight, literally saved her sight. We had one case where we represented 2 boys of a group of 5 who had gone on a school trip to the Macon Music Hall of Fame. On the way home, subsequent to their getting home, a couple of the little girls on the trip reported to the principal that the little boys had been messing with them. So needless to say, all the boys were expelled immediately. 2 of them came to us, their parents came to us, we represented them at the tribunal hearing, and we were able to locate the security tape from the room and showed it at the tribunal hearing, which showed that nothing happened as the girls had said it had happened. And so they had already conducted the tribunal hearings for the little boys who had no lawyers. We conducted our hearings and they said, oh, well, okay, dismiss the expulsion and put the other boys back in school. But it literally changed the lives for those little boys who, expelled from school at that age, would likely never have gone back. I want to show you, have another video experience. I have a video, it's a YouTube thing that was developed by the Legal Aid Program in Cleveland. So the numbers at the end would be slightly different for Georgia Legal Services, but the context, I think, is true for all legal services programs. all know families that are right on the brink, and if one thing goes wrong, they're over the edge. You can make a difference today. Go to the Georgia Bar website. You can make a contribution to Georgia Legal Services right there on the website. Or go to our website at glsp.org. You can make a contribution right there today if you want to help. And I appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
As you recalled in June, I encouraged all of you as leaders to take on the challenge of trying to provide monies to Georgia Legal Services, because that's a program that the Younger Lawyers Division created decades ago, and we as the Big Bar have really not lived up to our commitment as an entire Board of Governors to fund it, contribute it, and spread the word about it, but we need to do better. There's a lot of need out there right now. Okay, we have some special presentations on some good news. And the good news is that our Law Day program activities about voting that were held last April at the State Bar Center won the National Award for the Best Law Day program in the country from the ABA. And I'm going to invite my co-chair, Rita Sheffy, to give you a little bit more information about it so that you just don't know that, but know about the award winning, but you understand what it was about and how we did it.
Thank you, Madam President. We're pulling up a few slides here, and while we're doing that, we were very excited about this. Those of you who know me the best know that one of the things that excites me the most is getting involved in unique collaborations with different groups and different organizations, and so that's what we've done the last 2 years. What Patrise didn't mention was last year we won the ABA award as well. There were 3 top winners in the country, and we came in second, and we received an award. This year, there were again 3, I think, winners, and we came in first. So to do it 2 years in a row and to actually improve our position in the second year was pretty remarkable. I want to recognize Sarah Cool. I think Sarah. Oh, you don't have it? All right, well, we'll do it real quick. I'll just give you a little more information. We can always do it at another point. What I want to do is recognize Sarah because we had a great idea about what we wanted to do and the groups that we wanted to involve, but we needed somebody to do the design of all of our materials. And so there's these gorgeous materials. The theme was American Democracy and the Rule of Law, Why Every Vote Matters. And Sarah put together some amazing, wonderful red, white, and blue programs and other graphics and stuff. And it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get to the slides this morning, so we'll have to get those for everyone. But let me just tell you a couple of things about what we did and who the organizations were, because that really is really the beauty of the program. We had some amazing speakers and moderators, and we had a lot of help in recruiting those folks from the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, which has its new center located in downtown Atlanta. And if you have not been to the center in downtown Atlanta, I strongly encourage you to do so. It's an absolutely amazing, powerful experience, and those of you who've been, I'm sure would echo that. And they were a wonderful partner with us because they had some wonderful connections to speakers that some of the rest of us might not have been able to get to. And Sarah's got now that I've filled enough time, she's got the slides pulled up. So here's a list. This was a thank you ad we put in the daily report after our program, and it's busy, but it just gives you an idea of how many different people we had engaged in this. And I'm going to hit on some of the speakers as we go through the slides. The contributing organizations is really one of the major things. We had the Atlanta Bar and a number of its sections, the Atlanta Public Schools, our Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism. We had the Fulton County Superior Court, the Gate City Bar, the Georgia Asian Pacific American Bar, the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys, the Georgia Association for Women Lawyers, the Georgia Hispanic Bar, the Multi-Bar Leadership Council, as I said, the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, the South Asian Bar, and of course the State Bar and the Stonewall Bar Association. So we had a lot of people involved in this program, and Patrise and I were honored to co-chair this year. You'll also see a list there in the last 2 columns of the various members of the committee that worked with us over the almost a year that it took us to put the program together, and I'm so appreciative to all of them for their work. We're just going to flip through a few slides. We took a lot of pictures. So we had we had a lot of students in the morning session. We had what we called Youth Talk, and we had a number of activities for the students. They got to see what a literacy test was like and how hard that was to pass. They were obviously paying close attention. We had a lot of balloons and tried to make it fun. Not only did we have more than 200 students in the Bar Center in Atlanta, but we videocast it to Tifton and Savannah as well. So we had students in both of those locations who were able to participate in our Law Day program. And then this is just another couple of slides of some of the students that were there. It was just such a fun, energetic morning. Again, it was great. I think the student part was our favorite part. We just had so many wonderful kids from Atlanta Public Schools. And then, as I said, we also had some great students in Tifton and Savannah. And we thank our bar staff in those offices for their support, because we couldn't have pulled it off without them. This is a picture of a couple of election officials. One of the things that our president did was to have the idea that we would bring in actual voting machines in our locations, so that these students could see what it was like to actually use a voting machine. So these are a couple of our elections officials that joined us in Atlanta. This was a great picture that if you go to the ABA website and you find their Law Day page about the activity awards, they included, I believe, this picture as one of them that showed the students sort of going through this mock voting exercise. And we also had voting machines, I believe, in Tifton as well. This is just a group shot. We had Dr. Doris Derby, who's a noted civil rights activist and artist, who was with us that day. She spoke to the students about her work, and she brought a number of her black and white photographs that we had on display during the day and then during a later reception. And so this sort of captures the students with Dr. Derby. In the afternoon, we had a number of panels. We had a couple of panels on different issues. This one was on the history of voting rights in the United States, and we had Professor Eric Siegel from Georgia State. We had the general counsels of the Georgia Democratic and Republican parties, Michael Jablonski and Ann Lewis, and it was moderated by Elizabeth McNamara on the right, who is the president of the League of Women Voters of the United States. And it was a very wonderful discussion about sort of the history and how we got to where we are. And it was definitely challenging and educational. The next one just shows some of our panelists who were involved in the second panel in the afternoon on the challenges of maintaining a democracy. And this had both a U.S. and a global perspective. Our speakers included Michael O'Reilly with Amnesty International, Sarah Johnson with the Carter Center, Yolanda Tomlinson with the U.S. Human Rights Network, and David Vigilante, who's a senior VP with CNN and a senior VP and Associate General Counsel with Turner. And of course, this was moderated in the middle next to me. This was moderated by Cynthia Tucker. And that was a wonderful program as well. The next slide just shows a couple of our attendees at a reception that we had before our final session in the evening. And then the next slide, and a couple of our volunteers. And then the slide is my co-chair and myself. Obviously, we were enjoying ourselves. It was a great day, and we were very pleased to be able to put this on. The next slide shows Deborah Richardson, who is the Executive Vice President with the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, and she gave just a very brief presentation to our attendees about the center, which hadn't yet opened at that point, but would open shortly after that. And then this was the sort of final sort of capstone of our day. We called it Perspectives on Voting Rights and Enforcement, a Conversation. And I'm sure many of you will recognize folks in this picture. We had Sally Yates, the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, and now a nominee for the number 2 spot in the Justice Department. We had our Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, and we had Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian, who's a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom and has a wonderful list of accomplishments and achievements. And this was moderated by Maria Saporta, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And then the next slide just shows, again, the list of organizations, because it really was the most special thing, I think, to me, and I would think to Patrise as well, was that we were able to bring together so many of these bar associations and organizations with our schools and It was just an amazing synergy among the different groups, and I'm proud to say that this effort is continuing this year. Some of us have moved on and have focused on succession planning to recruit people to follow us, and Melody Richardson has taken on the mantle of coordinating Law Day 2015, which is going to be on April the 21st this year, and will involve a lot of other students. And then lastly, just to reiterate what Patrise noted earlier, is when our award will be represented, there are a number of folks from the State Bar who will be in Houston and who will be there with us to when we accept that award. And we couldn't be more excited and more proud of it, and it reflects incredibly well on the lawyers and on the profession in Georgia that we were able to do this and to benefit so many students and others in our community. Thank you.
We wanted to make certain that you understood about it. But I think one of the distinguishing points about our program is that we registered 28 students on site. They were going to be, to vote, because they were going to be 18 before the election, and they didn't realize that they could register as seniors who were 17 plus, and they were going to be 18 in November. So I think that that is what kind of launched us over the top. But that shows you the benefit of working collaboratively with people. All right, for the first part of the morning, we focused on bar business and internal activities with regard to our bar programs. And what we're doing now is transitioning into going back and focusing in on what it's like in your individual circuits. And so we have presentations from activities in the circuits from Scott Watts, and Judy King. So Scott, you're first up, telling us what's happening in Clayton County, and Judy's supposed to let us know what's going on in Gwinnett County. Thank them for doing this in advance. It does require additional time, but it's important for us as Board of Governors to know what's happening in our community.
Thank you, Madam President. I am Scott Watts, the Clayton Judicial Circuit and Clayton County Bar Association. First, I learn something every time I come to Bar Association meetings or State Bar meetings. Some are good and some are not so good. I'm not sure I'm pleased to know, as a baby boomer, I'm part of the gray wave. On the other hand, as a proud University of Georgia undergraduate and law school graduate, it is extremely important to me that at no point did my time at that school intersect with Lawton Stevens. Both my reputation and sanity seems to have survived as a result of that. But as for our bar, Clayton County is about 300,000 residents. About 300 lawyers are listed in the bar book as part of the circuit, though as a suburban county, many of those work downtown or work for government agencies. About half that number belong to our bar association. It's always been a driving force in the community. Long before I arrived, older lawyers told me that the Clayton Circuit itself was as a result of constant campaigning more than half century ago to separate it from the Stone Mountain Bar, or for the Stone Mountain Circuit. Back then, as I'm told, someone mentioned earlier, circuit riders. My understanding is back then they used to come down on the train from that circuit every now and then. But what is it like to be part of every bar association, voluntary local bar, has its own charm? For me, it has been a lifeline. When I was a young lawyer, its record in terms of how it treats lawyers, the collegiality of it, and how you're welcomed in is incredibly important. From a service standpoint, I guess, how does it work? Our local bar, I suppose, is like many others. We meet once a month on Thursday nights, in our case at the Lakes Spivey Country Club, and it is fueled first by about half an hour of, I won't call it serious drinking, let us say that it is enjoyable drinking, and where we meet and talk before our actual meeting begins. We have all sorts of speakers. We have a speaker at each of our meetings. Of course, we have what many bar associations have. We bring in district attorneys and professors and judges. On the other hand, we bring community leaders, also professors, people who will talk on various issues. Recently, we've had speakers on youth awareness, human trafficking. you try to bring something that you would not normally think about in your day-to-day practice of law. Service has always been important to our Bar Association. We have 3 members of this board, and all of them are former presidents of the bar. We have a monthly newsletter, which is now digital, though we have probably still half a dozen or so lawyers who refuse to have email. So they are still mailed their bar each month. The newsletter for more than 20 years has been my wife and law partner. We also have a website. Sarah, if you would, you may notice that you can go, if you would, go to the About Us, and it can tell you, statement of purpose, bar mission. On the other hand, if members of the public can certainly get this too, if you go to attorneys, if you would, and hit members by name. And you can go to any individual member of that. You can go to practice area. If you can go down to the bottom and hit Fred Zimmerman, who's also a member of our Board of Governors. He should be there somewhere. And you'll get a picture of him. If you scroll down, you see his email and practice areas. But if you were a member of the public and you wanted to try to find a lawyer, you can go to the practice area, and it will tell you, if you go to the side, go to practice areas, and hit bankruptcy. And it will tell you members of our bar who do bankruptcy. So we try to be efficient and helpful, both to our members, or also their various links. This is updated and kept semi-updated by one of our juvenile court judges. We keep pretty much historically everything in-house in our bar. We have a holiday party every year in December, obviously, that the price of admission, the bar sponsors it and funds it, but the price of admission is to bring toys for people in CASA, for children who need help and may not get any other toys that year. Our bar sponsors a CLE every year in which all 12 hours we offer, and we bring in local speakers. And we do this all for usually less than $150. This is especially important to young lawyers who have difficulty funding anything when you start. I was thinking of what Sherry was saying earlier, and it is so true that it is so much harder, and many of us don't think of this, to establish your own law practice. When my wife and I began our practice, there are all sorts of things, and historically, if you were going to hang up a shingle, you had certain things you could depend on. You could depend on court-appointed list work. You could depend on domestic work, because domestic work was always there. But in a world of the modern world of public defenders' offices and pro se litigants for divorces, it's harder and harder for people to set up in smaller communities and even larger ones. We're very proud in our circuit of our history with the high school mock trial competition. It was founded in Clayton County. It is still sponsored by our Bar Association. We organize the thing. We make sure attorneys are there to handle all the rounds, and that their coaches that coach the teams. It has been an enormously successful program in which the YLD took over a few years into its existence and has done just a remarkable job with it. We are very proud of them and their service for it. We are proud locally, of course. We have the defending champion, and I guess in Jonesboro High, and they've won 5 or 6 state titles and 2 national titles. So we like to see at least some small measure of credit for their good work. Now, in addition to these things, we also do Law Day, and we enjoy Law Day. It's a chance to honor our own and honor a member of our communities each year. We bring in speakers of various types each year. We had a particularly wonderful one this year. I want to thank publicly President Hooker for her wonderful, if you ever get a chance, have her do her presentation on the history of voting rights in terms of people who have been allowed to vote moving forward in this country. It's a wonderful job, and I appreciate it. But finally, it's time to go. See, I've set limits on myself for these things. But as an organization, it's the collegial nature of it that makes it, I think, special. When young lawyers come, they're welcomed into the bar, and though certainly law is a competitive field. Historically, the old joke, the bartender in Chicago, Dooley, was asked, he said, when they said it was a tough campaign, he said, well, politics ain't bing bang. Well, the same can be true with the practice of law. It's not tiddlywinks. But the same lawyer that tried to beat your brains out the week before will be the next one to help you with your next case and help you through what is not necessarily in your comfort zone. It has always been that way, and I hope in the future it will continue to be. Thank you, Madam President, for your allowing me to say good things about a topic which I'm always willing to talk about, the Clayton County Bar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott, for letting us know what's going on in Clayton County. Is Judy here? Okay, come on forward, Judy. I'm looking forward to you providing details on what's happening in Gwinnett.
Especially when you're over the time. So I'll go quickly. This is the Gwinnett County Bar Association 2014-15 year, and Patrise called one day when I was riding down the road and said, I would like for you to make a presentation about the Bar Association. Do it a PowerPoint in 5 minutes. I said, okay. Of course, I've never done a PowerPoint. So I was like, great. So this is a learning experience for me. I guess I'm one of the gray lawyers. All right, the first thing is, if you've never been to the Gwinnett County Courthouse, this is our courthouse. We also have had 2 new judges this year appointed. We have Randy Rich, who's now a Superior Court judge, and for those who have been in Gwinnett County, he was formerly a state court judge. And to replace him, the governor appointed State Court Judge Sean Bratton. We're really proud to have both of them as judges. Next, Gwinnett has started a program with our Chief Judge, Judge Melody Connor, doing a mass swearing in of new lawyers. And on November the 14th, 2014, she did a mass swearing in at our courthouse, which was lots of new lawyers, and all of you will be happy. We have some that are now the children of our local attorneys. For those of you who know Margaret Washburn and Lee Washburn, their son got sworn in. Mike Pugliese, daughter got sworn in. Walt Britt's daughter sworn in. And I think there was one other one, Jeff Sliz. So we have some new lawyers being sworn in and coming in. So I know y'all all be happy to know that we're not all old lawyers out in Gwinnett. Gwinnett also has an assisting practitioners project for those new lawyers that are coming in. It pairs the local established attorneys with beginning lawyers, and that's a program that Gwinnett Courts and the Gwinnett Legal Aid have been establishing, and that's working very well in helping the new lawyers understand their area that they're interested in and having a senior lawyer help them out. Oh yes, Gwinnett every year, and this year is no exception, did a Law Enforcement Appreciation Day where the local bar and everybody get together and we put on a program for the law enforcement to show our appreciation for them. Gifts are donated, the churches and the businesses get involved, the bar association's involved, our judges, and I'll show you some slides from that. That's just that we feed them, they're fed lunch, and there's our sheriff cooking. And that's just law enforcement coming through this line where lawyers and others prepare the meals, then gifts are given. I'm not doing too well with this thing. The children, there's activities for the children. And that is Keith Miles and his band. They play music and entertain. Our Chief Magistrate Judge, Christina Bloom, even sang this year. So it's a very good day for the law enforcement, and Gwinnett has put that on. Our bar has a monthly luncheon meeting. We're not like Clayton, we don't go to a drinking event. We're a very professional bar that wouldn't do that. So we have speakers every month, great speakers come, and it's held at the 1818 Club. We have a monthly meeting. In January, our speaker was former Governor Roy Barnes. We did have Governor Deal scheduled to come, but he was unable to come, and I think he's coming later. At Christmas, we do a Toys for Tots, and we collect all the toys that's put on by our criminal defense section of the local bar. That's Christine Kohler and our solicitor, Rosanna Sabo, collecting toys for children. We have a holiday party every year. This year was done at the Payne Corley House in Duluth, Georgia. That's just a picture of the place. I only was able to obtain one picture, so maybe they were drinking at that. I wasn't able to attend. But I did find one picture, but I was told that's just mashed potatoes in that martini glass, not a martini. So, but, all right, the other thing we do with the Gwinnett County Bar Association is Habitat for Humanity. The local bar gets together and helps build a house in the community. That hadn't happened this year yet, but it's on the schedule to happen. So I've got some slides from, okay, your thing's not working. This is just how they start the program. And I think that I went back to try to find our bar president in these pictures, because I looked back from one of our prior years, and it seems I saw her in one of these. So I think she's helped in some of these with our bar association. And now we have the Magna Carta, which is going to be our law day program, which Judge Rodatus amply pointed out that it had a misspelled word, so I'll go ahead and point it out for you. And as we looked it up, we do a law day banquet. We do a judge's reception. We have students in the community send in essays about what the topic is. Of course, this year it's the Magna Carta, symbol of freedom under law. And I didn't have any pictures from this year, so I did some from prior years. And one thing Judge Rodatus did point out to me is he wanted me to let y'all know that the Magna Carta points out about notaries, just in case y'all are wondering about that. So when you're reading back on it, this is just the planning processes for, and that's pictures from prior law day banquets that we've had. And since we're through, I will thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Judy. You did a great job. Learning this skill, too. I really appreciate these information from the circuit, and several of you all have complimented me on this because you didn't know about what was happening in those circuits, and you also got some good ideas for some new projects, so I'm glad that we can help. All right, we have some special presentations today. We're going to need Norman Zoller. I think Norman's here. Eric, are you going to be on behalf of Norman? He has a presentation to make for the recipient of the 2014 Marshall Tuttle Award. This is from our Military Veterans Committee.
Norman couldn't be here. He had to fly out to Seattle, and he had to leave it earlier this morning. So I will be joined by John Camp, who is our last year's recipient of the Marshall Tuttle Award. The Marshall Tuttle Award is given by the Military Legal Assistance Program each year. It is named in two parts. It is named after the son of Drew Marshall, who is a veteran who was killed in the line of duty in the Afghanistan. Drew was in Afghanistan, correct? Killed in the line of duty in Afghanistan. A member of our bar, and also named for Judge Elbert Tuttle, who is a pioneer in pro bono and legal service for military veterans, and was responsible for making sure that prior to taking the bench, that he brought the case before the Supreme Court that guaranteed the rights of servicemen to have an attorney represent them in court-martial proceedings. Each year, the Military Legal Assistance Program awards the Marshall Tuttle Award, which is this eagle, as well as a certificate to a member of the bar who has best demonstrated its service to the Military Legal Assistance Program and military veterans and military service personnel. Last year, John Camp was our award recipient. We have, this is the 5th award. Past recipients have included Lane Dennard, Drew Early, John Camp, Carrie King. And this year, our award recipient is Patricia D. Shoemaker. And if Patty will come forward, and if her family, she's got her daughter Molly with her, and members of her firm, I believe I saw Jim Holmes was here, if he's still here. Come on up, Jim. Get up here. Patty practices law with the firm of Shoemaker and Shoemaker, along with her husband, Steve Shoemaker, who's not here. He's off on duty. Some of the people associated with that firm are of counsel, Jim Holmes, and the first Marshall Tuttle Award winner, Drew Early. Most notably, all of these folks are also military veterans, and Patty's is no exception to that. She quite proves the rule. Patty's a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, where she received a degree in political science. She went on to serve as an officer, as a military intelligence officer. She served in Operation Iraqi Enduring Freedom as a commander of a counterintelligence company, all prior to her attending law school. She attended Georgia State Law School and joined her husband Steve in practice, where they practice in the Metro Atlanta area. They do a lot of mostly domestic relations. However, they concentrate on serving the military and veteran community. Patty has been a very active part of the military veterans section. She has served as the CLE coordinator, putting together the section's signature program, which is a annual CLE that we put on generally at the Bar Center, where we host at least one keynote speaker. She also put together the CLE program this past year, where we took a group of bar members to Normandy, France, and had a CLE as well as history. And she put together all of that, including speakers from not only the United States, but also attorneys from Europe that helped put on a spectacular program and CLE. This year, in addition to serving her clients and continuing to do her pro bono, she put together a military legal assistance clinic for veterans who are students at Georgia State, and she began that program. That program opened its doors in November this year, and officially on Veterans Day, and began serving and meeting with clients there. So we put together in reviewing the stack of nominations, the cream always rises to the top, and I'd like to present this year's Marshall Tuttle Award to Patricia D. Shoemaker. John? I'm doing this on behalf of Norman Zoller, and y'all all know that Norman serves as the coordinator for the Military Legal Assistance Program for the State Bar. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Military Legal Assistance Program, it helps pair up veterans and active duty service members of the armed forces who need legal assistance, and they pair them up with a member of the Georgia Bar who has proudly stepped forward to provide legal assistance, and sometimes under very difficult, austere conditions. You'll have clients in the field in Afghanistan, on board ships, and other foreign countries with very poor communications. And unfortunately, Norman had to catch a plane to leave this morning, and he asked me to do the honors of assisting Eric in the presentation. I've known Patty Shoemaker since she was pregnant with Molly, and she is just one fantastic person. She's a stand-up individual. Although she's not tall in her stature, she is a giant among lawyers who volunteer to do things. And I would tell you, with three people like Patty Shoemaker, I could fight a legion of lawyers from other states and whip them all. She is just really outstanding, and I just say, it's a privilege this morning, as a 2014 recipient of the Marshall Tuttle Award, to pass the gout on to Patty Shoemaker this morning. And let me read you the citation that appears on the Eagle. It says, the Marshall Tuttle Award presented to Patricia Shoemaker by the State Bar of Georgia as Lawyer of the Year for 2014, providing outstanding legal assistance to military service members and veterans. And by the way, there are 700,000 veterans in the state of Georgia. And Georgia is the fourth largest military population of active duty and reserve service members in the United States. So we got a big cut of cloth to take care of. Patty, I present to you the 2014 Marshall Tuttle Award. And I have the certificate that makes the trophy, accompanies the trophy, and with that bears the signature of Patrise Perkins-Hooker, the president of the State Bar of Georgia. And Patty, we thank you for your service.
Let's get a photo out with Sarah. Thank you very much. Congratulations. We have a memorial tribute to make on behalf of two members of our profession, two giants who died since the last meeting of the Board of Governors, who had also been intimately involved in the formation of our bar and had served as, one of them had served as president. And this tribute is to Colonel Carl Sanders and Attorney Kurt McAlpin. I'm going to ask you just to kind of bow your head in a moment of just kind of quiet as I read through the information on both gentlemen. We're not presenting any type of formal presentation because we did that previously with Colonel Sanders. Recognized him for his service a couple of years ago, and we just wanted to make certain you knew who they were, because some of these men provided distinguished service to us before some of the members of this board were even born. Former Governor, Georgia Governor Carl Sanders passed away on November 16th at the age of 89. He courageously led our state in the right direction at a pivotal moment in American history during his service as governor from 1963 through 1966. Thanks to the progressive leadership of Governor Sanders during the Civil Rights era, Georgia avoided much of the violence and turmoil experienced in our neighboring states. At the same time, one neighboring state's governor was gaining national notoriety for standing in the schoolhouse door to prevent integration. Governor Sanders became known as the first governor of the New South. Georgia lawyers owe an extra measure of appreciation for Colonel Sanders, who in 1963, during his first year in office, signed the legislation that resulted in the establishment of the mandatory State Bar of Georgia. But he did not merely sign the bill. It was his unwavering support that led to its approval by both houses of the General Assembly. His efforts resulted in a successful conclusion for what had been a 40-year struggle on the part of bar leaders to unify the state bar. Governor Sanders had a clear understanding of the need for an organized bar to enforce academic and professional standards for would-be lawyers, along with the need to establish a process of discipline to protect the public from lawyer misconduct. He directed his floor leaders in the House and the Senate to exert their influence to pass the controversial legislation, and he enthusiastically signed it into law. In a 2011 interview for the Georgia Bar Journal, Governor Sanders reminisced that the voluntary Georgia Bar Association was at the time a toothless tiger, unorganized, with no right to discipline its members. Of the modern bar, he said, those of us who are in the field of law ought to be proud. We've got an association that we can support and one that can discipline anyone who doesn't abide by the regulations. I am proud of what I did then, and I'm proud of what the State Bar has become. I'm very pleased that the State Bar was able to show its appreciation to Governor Sanders during our mid-year meeting 1 year ago this weekend, when he was presented with the Founders Award for his critical role in the establishment of the Unified State Bar of Georgia by immediate past President Buck Ruffin. Attorney Kirk McAlpin, who passed away on November 21st, 2014 at the age of 91, made his mark on the legal profession in Savannah and Atlanta and the entire state as the 17th president of the State Bar of Georgia. A graduate of the University of Georgia Law School, Attorney McAlpin embarked on his legal career in 1949. An exemplary leader among his peers, Attorney McAlpin served as the president of the Younger Lawyers section of the Georgia Bar Association in 1954. He was also a part of the establishment of the Unified State Bar of Georgia through his service on a special study committee in 1962. Attorney McAlpin also helped establish the general practice section of the State Bar and the International Legal Exchange Program of the American Bar Association. He co-authored Profile of a Profession, the State Bar's analysis of Georgia legal economics. In 1979, Attorney McAlpin was elected as the 17th president of the State Bar of Georgia, and he served until the completion of his term in June of 1980. He further served the legal profession as a Georgia delegate to the American Bar Association from 1965 to 1985. He started his law practice in Savannah and became a partner at Buchan, Lawrence, Williams, Levy, and McAlpin before moving to Atlanta, where he joined King and Spalding as a senior partner. He also served his country as an Army veteran of World War II, serving in both North Africa and Europe. The lifetimes of service of both Governor Carl Sanders and Attorney Carl McAlpin stand as an inspiration to all members of the State Bar of Georgia. We are grateful for their many contributions to our profession and toward ensuring justice for every citizen of this great state. At this time, on behalf of our fellow members of the State Bar of Georgia, we add our condolences to the Sanders and McAlpin families, their colleagues, and many friends. I was personally able to represent you at the wake for Attorney McAlpin. They will be missed, but their legacies will endure forever because of the lasting positive impact they had on the lives of their fellow Georgians. Thank you for allowing this memorial tribute to take place. I commend to you the written reports that are in your book. I just want to point out one thing, and that is everybody's always interested in the number of lawyers who pass the bar and who don't. In the section on the Georgia bar exam results on page 260, you'll see that 131,311 people took the exam and 967 people passed. Is there any old business? Any new business? Yes, sir. I'm there, Judge Bell now, right? Mr. Bell.
That's correct. Thank you for allowing me to speak here this afternoon. Now, I heard a collective moan as I went to the microphone because it's the last of the meeting, and, well, the collective moan is less now because we've lost a lot of members. But one of the things that I wanted to point out to the board and to the executive committee came up in our advisory committee of legislation with regards to the issues regarding private probation that is going to be, I believe, a hot topic this year in the legislature. I believe that there's going to be some legislation introduced to deal with a lot of the issues that have come up with regards to private probation. And I know in my service on the executive committee, one of the things that I took the most serious is acting on that type of legislation and voicing a board approval or the bar approval when it's just the executive committee. I thought that was one of the more serious things that we did as an executive committee is to weigh in on legislation without the Board of Governors having a meeting. And that's what they're charged with. That's what the executive committee does, and that's useful and needs to be done. I would just say that with regards to the issues that are going to come up with private probation, that there is a full breadth of knowledge about what exactly happens, what goes on, what doesn't go on, from all sides of this equation. I have a certain view, being on the bench and being a municipal court judge now going on 14 years in dealing with private probation companies during that whole period. I have one court that I sit on that is a public-run, a city-run probation company that seems to operate almost under a different set of rules than private probation. I applaud the Southern Center for Human Rights and their efforts to make a topic for discussion throughout the state about the transparency in private probation that needs to happen, reform needs to happen. However, I just want to caution everybody about a knee-jerk reaction to certain events throughout the state. I think that looking at those issues, especially as a bar, and getting information from all of the players in those situations is the best. Because right now it seems very popular to beat up on probation and probation services throughout the state. I'm not saying that there's probation companies that haven't made mistakes. There are. There are judges that have made mistakes. I'm sure I have. In fact, I know I have. But what the main purpose is to let folks know what they are doing wrong, and let's try to get them fixed as everybody moving forward together. One of the popular misconceptions that I see in the public even today with regards to all the articles that I see is the fact that it appears as if everybody just thinks that probation is just to collect fine money, which is absolutely not true. Probation is done for a lot of different things, to deter crime, to monitor folks, to make sure that they stay on the right track. It's just not a money collecting tool. Now that is a byproduct most of the time, a money collecting tool, and that has come under fire in the state, and it should. There are a lot of things that have happened with regards to probationers that I don't like, that we try to correct, that the judiciary tries to correct on a statewide basis. But I just want to caution the executive committee to not get caught up in just the wholesale, lack of bashing of probation. We need to look forward and go forward in trying to improve it, and all of us work together to where we all know what we're supposed to do, okay? One of the things that happens throughout the state is folks are operating under misconceptions of what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, recent decisions come out, I get an email from one body that says I'm supposed to do this, I get an email from another body that says I'm supposed to do that, and you just try to figure out which one you do, and you just err on the side of caution a lot of times. But A lot of those things can be corrected and dealt with as long as we don't have just a flat-out knee-jerk reaction to things. We need to study it. We need to all try to work together. And I just caution the executive committee on that, because there will be a piece of legislation that will float across. That will happen. And I urge you to ask folks, ask members of this body, ask the judiciary their opinions about things, ask public defenders their positions about things, prosecutors, to get a full breadth of sometimes impracticalities of implementing pieces of legislation. The piece of legislation that I saw, while most of it I agreed with, there's certain parts of it that if implemented today would shut down municipal courts all across this state. Now, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what the intent was, but I doubt it. And until we have sort of a philosophical switch in our whole state about those things from the top down, those things are going to be hard to implement, not from the judiciary, not from probation, but just as the bodies that we're trying to implement them on. So I just caution the executive committee to really get opinions from a lot of different folks. And I'll say to the executive committee that I'm available at any time to answer any questions about how I see it and how things happen with regards to municipal probation. Like I said, most judges and most probation companies want to do things the right way. We do. We just need to sort of know what way is the right way. And a lot of times you know that, but a lot of times there's things that are vague that's out there. I mean, they just are. And this legislation that I hope goes through will make those things very apparent to private probation, to the judiciary, et cetera. However, I just want there to be a full input from all the players and not just get on the bandwagon of, hey, we don't need any of this probation business out there. We need to quit putting people in jail, period, to stop all that. Well, in some cases, I agree with that. But in some cases, jail is an alternative that has to happen to deter crime and to keep people safe.
I have taken down the comments that you made. We do not have a bill before us as of yet. We do, as you indicate, anticipate one maybe being pulled together by a group of people to try to address what are abuses in probation, and I'd agree with you, we don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I will take you up on your suggestion to at least be available to the executive committee, and when we get something to look at, we can be more responsive to the comments you made, but thank you for letting us know.
Thank you, ma'am.
I appreciate that. Any other new business? Okay, you need to come to the microphone, yes, please. Excuse me, Jeff.
Assuming the executive committee gets some sort of a proposal on that private probation thing, how do you handle it? Do you send it back to the advisory committee on legislation? Does this body get to discuss it, or what?
There is a bar rule 100, is that the correct one? Standing board policy 100 allows for the rapid review, comment, input on legislation that comes up during the session. Now, if it comes up, the way I like to do it, it's just me, if it comes up before a board meeting, like we've got a board meeting in January 28th, it would come before the executive committee. However, the rule allows for the, I think it's the president, the immediate past president, the chair of ACL, is the president-elect on there too, have a conference call and kind of come up with a position. But that's because it takes too long for us to all convene. But as long as I get a chance to have an opportunity to get it to the executive committee, at least we have people from different practice areas, and we can get comments from a larger group than just those few.
Okay, that was my concern. Do board members have an opportunity to
board
comment?
Board members do not have an opportunity. Most of the time, someone's looking for a response that day or the next day. It really depends on when it's dropped in the legislative cycle, because if it's too close to the 30th day, there's no time to act. But no, the rule does not allow for that.
Thank you.
But maybe I can send it out, though. It doesn't, that's not the rule, Mr. Judge Cannon. And it doesn't prohibit it. All right. Any other new business? All right. We're moving into questions, answers, comments, suggestions, which you just got a couple of them. I wanted to let you know that we appreciate the exhibitors who were here with us. I hope that you all got a chance to take advantage of their wares. Atlanta Custom Tailors, Business Appraisal Group, Cambridge Professional Group, Diminished Value of Georgia, Geico, LawPay, MedLife, MLQ Attorney Services, Omega Promotions LLC, State Bank, Tab 3 Software. They were all located at the exhibitors and vendors table outside. And it's important, in order for us to continue to have those types of services made available to you, that you at least drop by and pay a courtesy visit to those individuals, those entities. Any other comments or anything I missed, members of executive committee or staff? All right. Any other comments from the board? With that, we adjourn, and thank you again for your patience. We had to get through a lot today, and we did a great job.